Hey guys, it's Daniel and Peter here at 88 to 1, and just like the rest of you guys around the country, we're currently self-isolating to make sure that everyone gets healthy and over this. And we thought, 88 to 1 may not have many productions happening at the moment, thanks to our inability to go out and shoot things. But we're going to take time to get to know you guys and help you get to know us. So we're going to talk today a little bit about TKG, our upcoming feature, a bit about where 88 to 1 came from, and also at the end, a bit of a tease some of you guys may have heard about what we'll be doing for you guys while everyone is self-isolating inside. Hey Damien, how you going?
Not too bad, man. Yourself?
Oh man, I live with you at this point, so
Quarantine, right?
yeah, we're having fun. You know, plenty variety of meals. It never changes.
Oh yeah, frozen food's great.
Oh, so tasty.
Absolutely.
So, what are your other gripes about having to stay in with me?
I think the list is too long, and I don't think we want to keep these people watching all day.
Well, in that case, let's celebrate the fact that we are here today to talk about TKG, the Kids of Grove, your first cinema feature that's coming out very shortly.
Thank you.
And 88 to 1 that is the vehicle through which you got there. So let's start with, what does 88 to 1 mean to you?
Well, it's crazy. I guess it's an identity in some ways. I think obviously, as you know, coming up, we kind of went to film school together.
Yep.
Which is obviously crazy times and everything
Yes.
like that. And I think that as most indie filmmakers know, I guess it's only as strong as your team.
Yep.
So to me, I think it symbolises the team that we've kind of built for the last 10 years, even though 88 to 1's been running, I think, 6 now. It's our 6th year of operation.
Yeah.
So we've kind of been building it for about 10 years. And I guess for us, it's what we do. And it's our way of being able to make our own productions, do things our own way, go at our speed. And, that's exactly what it means to me. And I think, you were there from the start.
Yeah, I know.
From the start, and I'm excited to what we're going to do in the future, and pretty happy with the foundation we've built.
I'm just happy that it's turned into a vehicle where I can start doing whatever I want with my friends. I mean, let's face it, we have one of the best jobs, I think, in the country. We go out and make fun every day. We don't just have fun; it's our job to make fun that everyone else can enjoy.
I think it's a level that you walk the line of kind of professionalism and enjoying what you do. I think and us having the ability to kind of obviously have fun in what it is that we do and not have to take on too much of the kind of political bullshit that comes with filmmaking. I think, but it takes a lot of hard work to get to that point. I think that
and bullshit.
Yeah. I think a lot of young filmmakers that finish film school, I think they all... I mean, look, to be honest with you, like I remember seeing it last year, well, not last year, probably year before, we wrapped TKG, and I saw, we had quite a young crew, if you remember, on TKG, and a few of them
very skilled young crew as well.
Yeah, very skilled, absolutely. And I remember a lot of them had their own little production houses, their own little production names and stuff, and it just took me back about 10 years ago. I don't know if you remember, but I had my own to start with, little Chipichawa Productions,
yes,
if you remember that.
CCW
all the way, and that's just a name. You know what I mean? I think what you got to do is you got to continue to work hard and build as much as you can through those names to make them mean something. I think that back when we wrapped TKG, and I saw a lot of these young companies, I'll call them, I guess young filmmakers who made up their company names. It's just, again, one, it took me back to how we used to do it. But two, it also shows that it's a good foundation to build from, but it takes a long time to get to where you need to get to. And I think that long, hard works, a lot of long hours, unpaid hours will get you there. And again, if you want to be self-employed and work for yourself, there's a lot of sacrifice that comes with.
Oh, and speaking of sacrifice, what were one of the biggest things you noticed, or some of the biggest things you noticed when you switched from being a freelancer to suddenly running as your own company? It is a massive step up, even if you're still just a one-person company.
24/7. That's the biggest thing. I think as a freelancer, you're a gun for hire, you do jobs and stuff, even if you're directing or ADing or depending on what it is that you're doing, camera operator, whatever it is. Like as a freelancer, you know what I mean? You usually get a starting hour and a finishing hour, and not outside of that, there's not a hell of a lot that goes on your shoulders. And sometimes when you're, say, a freelance director or a first AD, I'm not saying, I've done those jobs, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
For 10, 12 solid years now. They're not easy jobs at all, but the weight of responsibility isn't as much as when you run your own shop and when you do your own shop. But these are things that even on Christmas morning, you're waking up and still checking your emails. Even on public holiday, there's just no stopping. It's 24/7, 365.
You're in charge of your own holidays, which means that you don't decide to give yourself a holiday.
What's funny is in your personal life, you have people that tell you, oh, you're lucky you work for yourself, you get to pick and choose when you work. I'm like, yeah, fuck, it's not the situation at all.
You don't stop working.
No, we don't. You know what I mean? But that's what it takes to build a juggernaut. So we're on our way.
I'm into that. So that's, how 88 to 1's come together.
Yep.
What's Damien's stake in 88 to 1? What do you bring to the company? Why do we love you so much?
Not a lot.
Well, yeah, but you don't want to tell them that.
Yeah, that's it, 100%. I guess it's will, you know what I mean? It's trying to build a company reputation for one thing, and trying to obviously use what I've done the past 10, 12 years to, hold the company into a credible standing. But yeah, it's work, to be honest. It's sweat. It's 100% sweat what I put into it. Obviously, I've got some good business partners. You're one of them. We've got another two, obviously not here today. They're not bad.
Credit to Jacques and George. You guys do a wonderful job as well.
Yeah, Jacques and George. And there's a lot that those guys bring to the table. There's a lot that you brought to the table.
They're the je part of
the je. Yeah.
George, Jacques.
Yeah. Damien.
Yeah. We bring the DP.
Yeah, that's it. We do bring the DP. George's gonna love that. But I like to think that, when I saw what you guys brought to the table, it's leadership as well. It's going, okay, well, I'm gonna make sure we bring this thing to the next level, and also be able to go, okay, well, you got to work to put yourself out there. You know what I mean?
And most of our work when it started was just show reels. I mean, we're still very good. I love doing show reels.
Yeah.
It's an easy way to get in there and have variety every time.
To be honest with you, the bread and butter stuff we do, show reels is the best because it keeps the wheels rolling. You know what I mean? And you get to work with new talent, which is great. Obviously,
it's an easy way for us to find new talent, and I will be grilling you on casting later.
Thank you. Actually, to be honest, I do enjoy show reels. I think that it does. Every scene is different because the beauty about show reels compared to, obviously, we'll talk a little bit about feature film and obviously building that as well. But the beauty about show reels is scenes in isolation and being able to then tackle different genres, different settings, different everything without being glued to a 100-page script.
Understandably. And speaking of, a feature film,
yeah.
How do you move from doing show reels all the time in your own business, happy with corporates? When do you decide to do a feature? What's the threshold that you hit?
I don't know. To be honest with you, it's a mixture of everything. I was getting restless not doing it. I think that obviously...
I know I was bored. I felt like it was just going around in circles.
Yeah, 100%. 100.
That wasn't so much from the show reels either. That's just from the fact that we were stuck in routine and, needed a way to break up the cycle a bit.
Well, yeah, I think so too. But I also think that what happened to me, I think 2018 when we got into TKG, I kind of felt we got into this industry for a reason, is to make content and to make, feature-length content. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be one of those filmmakers... No offense to anyone out there, but I want to be one of those filmmakers that's making short films till I'm 40.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And look, if that, again, no knock on no one. You know what I mean? I remember...
Some of those are amazing, and it's where we got to start.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And I think that when I got into the industry, I was pretty young when I started, as you were too. We were in our teens when we started this thing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I remember being 20, 21, thinking I'm going to make a feature film before I'm 25. You know what I mean? Then obviously years keep going on, and you realise it's not an easy thing. It's not just get your DSLR camera and shoot a 90-minute film and think that you're a feature filmmaker. Like, I think that... when we're kind of going through the motions and because what happens is, and again, not to get off track, but when you go through the motions of going, okay, well, in 2014, we build this company, 88 to 1, and then 2015, 2016, 2017, we're shooting show reels, we're shooting music videos, brand content, advertising content, corporate stuff.
We're definitely using our skills out there.
Yeah, and we dabbled in 360 for a minute as well, so...
we still do, I think,
absolutely. That's above my pay grade, but nonetheless,
mine too, and I do it.
Yeah, exactly. So we're dabbling a lot of stuff, and I thought that we built the company really well, but that's not what we got into it for. You know what I mean? I think that come 2018, I know yourself and obviously me, and I know Georgie, who is over in Sydney. Like, we're all getting a little restless, going, well, we came here to change the game.
Yep.
We came here to make a feature film, and look, we knew one thing is as well is it's hard in Australia, and you know that better than anyone. Like, in Australia, it's difficult. Because you're sitting there, and I reckon there's about 100 filmmakers across the country that will vouch for what I'm about to say. Is a lot of these guys sit there and they're waiting. They wait and they wait and they wait. Why? Because they've got to go for a grant for this and go on for a grant for that. And you get your development grants for this, and you sit there and you're waiting for someone to...
My worry there is the poor people that end up just stuck in the cycle of continuing to get grants for short films. Because, short films are great as a start off, and they're human nature, let's face it. But to move on from that, and up to the next level, it's what features are designed for. I felt it was the right thing for us as a production company.
I saw my biggest fear again, and this is, look, I've made 16 short films in my time.
Yep.
And look, I'm not knocking on, no government grant funded shit anywhere. You know what I mean? And there's a couple of reasons for that. I'm not bitter about that. Like, I never went for anything. So, you know what I mean? We never went for these big $10,000, $15,000, $35,000. I never did, because a couple of reasons.
If you went back again, would you try?
No. And again, and there's a reason for that. It's got nothing to do with, I don't want them, nothing like that. I mean, come on, man. If someone was going to put 40 grand on the table for me to make a short film, if I said no to that in the spot, I'm a liar.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me you're going to give me money to create content, of course I'm going to do it. But one thing that I think, and again, this might get a little off track here, but when you're looking at short films, right, and you get given 30 grand to make a short film, 50 grand to make a short film, and we've worked on shoots where they've had $75,000 to shoot a short film. Now, depends on where you're watching this. You might be watching this in the States, and that's just a regular...
Yeah.
They'll probably give 100 grand for short films there. But here in Australia, I mean, 75 Gs for a short film is pretty decent, right? Decent quid. So... To answer the question, would I go back and do that? No, because I think when you're on your own and you go out there and do your own content, a couple of things are at play here. You got full creativity to do what you want to do.
True.
You get to make your own mistakes. You know what I mean? As a director, I've made 16 short films and I like 4 of them. Like that's 25% of the content I've directed, short form content I directed, I actually like. The rest of it were my mistakes. And I got to
I'm assuming you still enjoy your mistakes.
Oh, 100%. And there's still elements of those films that I like. Obviously, I would, or else I would not have done them in the first place.
Did any of the elements in your mistakes make it into TKG in a way that fans of your early work will know?
What, my mistakes? No, I do my best not to repeat my mistakes. In my business life, anyway. In my personal life, that's a different story. But what we do is I look back on those things, and the other reason as well is when you get given a film funding, right?
Yep.
By whether it's a Screen Australia, Film Victoria, Screen West,
yes,
the usual cats, is you're stuck on that project for a portion of time. They don't give you the funding and you can shoot the next day. You know what I mean? Because they're teaching. The funding's almost a way to teach you, right?
True.
So you're in this cycle, and I've seen projects that have been given funding, and it's a 15, 16, 17 minute film, right?
Yep.
And they're working on these films for 12 months. And when we're going back,
I know that feeling.
And there's a reason I said, I made 16 short films between the year 2009 and 2015. So that's 6 years. So in 6 years, I made 16 short films, which is, 6 years, 16, almost two and a half a year?
One short a year plus 10.
Yeah, there you go. One short a year plus 10. So I look at that going, well, if I'm getting funding, I'm not making as much content.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Let's just say I get all these grants coming in from whoever, right? And it's like, okay, cool, I've made 4 short films in 5 years. They might look great. Yeah, we get to shoot on a Red One back in 2009. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? I got to go out there, make mistakes, learn from my mistakes, put it into the next one,
So you've done 16 and you like 4. Would you then say that 4 over that 6 years that come at quality, would that be a good run for you?
4 out of the 6 years?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think we got to remember as well, we're young, man. You're just 20. The thing is as well is you learn lessons about yourself too. I remember being 2010.
Don't forget, I'm sure all the other people that took part in the films would probably like more than just 4. So I think you're being very hard on yourself.
I'm my own worst critic. But I remember back in 2010, I was 21, 22,
yep,
and I thought my shit didn't stink. You know what I mean? That's the crazy thing is because when you're young, and I see that a lot, even over here on the East Coast, we see a lot of, and we worked with a lot of them on TKG and stuff, is you see these young filmmakers and their confidence is sky high, which is great. And I think you need to have that. But I also
You've got to also have the, CV to match.
You got to have the CV to match 100%, but you also got to learn and go, okay, cool, this is what I thought worked, this is what doesn't work. And that's what happened during those 16 films. I mean, out of the 16, I think we released 4 of them.
Yep.
4 or 5 of them. One of them I never, I think 1 or 2 barely even made it through post, because you got to that point where you're just like, look, this ain't working. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we know what works for next time. Move on.
And we do. But that's the problem is you got nothing at stake. I mean, outside, of course, the crew and cast's time and effort and sweat that goes into it, which again, we appreciate 100%, but that's just part of the journey. And you look at that going, well, and the other thing as well is not a knock on shorts, is one thing I never did, which for positive or negative, is I wasn't one of those filmmakers that went out and pushed out 1 short film and then did a 2-year festival run. You know what I mean? And we see a lot of that. And again, that's everyone's got their own cup of tea. Everyone, is entitled to their own cup of tea. But for me, I wasn't one of those, because again, if I spend 12
you're all about the content.
Well, if I spend 12 months on 1 short film, fuck. You know what I mean? I'd be
too hungry.
Yeah. I'm ready for my seconds after, and that happened. I think in 2010 we shot 2 short films inside 3 weeks. So
oh my god, yes.
Yeah, which was fun, but they're 2 of the mistakes, but that's fine. It's all good.
It's all right. So moving on to bigger mistakes now. Let's talk about the new feature you've got coming out. It's TKG, the Kids of Grove. And before we jump to the trailer, do you want to say anything quickly to let people know what they're up against?
I guess, I'll explain a little bit about the film. So TKG, the Kids of Grove, a feature-length film coming out of Melbourne, Victoria. So it's pretty much based on a company called the Right Property Firm who has struck down a little housing commission unit. They've pretty much bought the rights to the building. They've got their new project out and they've shut down the housing commission, which has left a lot of people homeless. So obviously a lot of people probably have similar things going on at the moment, no doubt. But yeah, it turns into a bit of a thriller as a young group from this community called the Grove comes back and has their say. So we'll check out the trailer and see how it's feel.
Look at me, Joanna. You brought yourself here to evict the last of these people. My people. You sleep in warm beds with hot showers. What of the Grove, What becomes of us?
We evicted 45 units.
The Grove's days have been numbered for some time. The public knows that.
So the only thing the public can see is that we made all those families homeless.
Let the public complain when in 12 months' time they've got a safe place to live. I've got no sympathy for those northern suburb scum.
I've been reading the Herald's post in the last hour. Check out the comments. They're signed off by a group called the TKG.
These are threats, Nick.
Keyboard warriors. We cop it on social media every time we propose anything.
They've been inactive for the past 10 years, but from what I read, they were bad news.
I want you to know something, Mr. Wright. I want you to know you're gonna die tonight, along with all your staff. And I want you to know I'm gonna be the man who kills you.
Wow. I've seen that probably about 50 million times now. How about you?
100 million.
I know. And I have to admit, it's still a fun trailer to watch. Now, walk me through it.
The trailer?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think trailers are something that I've always that amps me up. Because whether the film's good or bad, and hopefully ours is good, but whether the film's good or bad, I think a trailer for me is what gets you energized for a project. You know what I mean? Especially at independent level. Any film you can, and this is what goes on into the filmmaking process, is when we kind of got into TKG and the script was written and as we got onto set, that was in the back of my mind the whole time. Is this something we can cut an exciting trailer out of? Because I think that I've seen a lot of independent films, and especially over here in Australia, because you study the market and you study what's going on and stuff, and a lot of the trailers are all about the audio. You know what I mean? It's 100% the audio. You know what I mean? Yeah. Inception styles. But yeah,
That
I think,
may usually end up spoiling the ending or the twist just to get anyone to come to
yeah,
the
I
cinema.
know, which is just shits me. Which one was it? I think it's, I can't remember. There's been heaps of trailers that have done
Yeah.
that. But yeah, it's about having the audio, and obviously we had a great kind of combination. We kind of used the TKG theme inside the trailer, done by Genius Scoring, which they scored the whole feature film, which is
Absolutely
fantastic.
amazing.
And Richard Steigner, who kind of did the ending theme to that trailer, with the music going through, kind of a bit more emotional to it. I remember actually asking him the question because we kind of... He kind of cut a slower version of that you saw in the trailer, and I loved it. And but then obviously I wanted a faster paced trailer.
Yes.
So I remember getting on the phone to him and asking him to speed that up a little bit, which was
he
great.
did.
And he did. Oh, straight away it took him 30 seconds. Well, not 30 seconds, but you know what I'm saying, within a couple of minutes, the new version over to me as well. So big shout out to Richie.
Yeah, and credit to Richard at the moment. Richard Robot Stanger is currently out. What is he doing? It's a new song every week, isn't it? 100%
Yeah.
acapella. And he's just started a Patreon, so feel free to go ahead and check him out. It's some quality music made here in Australia.
Yeah, well, actually, we'll throw a link down to it. Yeah, for sure, 100%.
Right there.
Yeah. No, big shout out. That's someone out there who's creating content and putting it out there on a weekly basis. And I think that, and he was doing it before all this quarantine BS. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean, full credit to out there. And I think that us as artists, whether we're filmmakers, actors, musicians, like with the landscape of today, we should be able to put more content out there. For sure.
Especially when we've got nothing better to do.
Yeah. That's why we're doing this.
Indeed. Speaking of doing this, let's talk. So you've decided you want to do TKG. Where do you develop the idea from there? What makes it come together into an idea?
Well, it was kind of wild. So to kind of run you through that question is you got to kind of go back to how it all started. So when we got into the mindset of making a feature film, so a couple of things sprung to mind. So originally I got told that we'll have a little bit of finance through some investors that I knew. Said that we have a little bit of finance. Can you make a feature film for pretty much 50 grand? And I remember going through my head and I was like, all right, leave it with me, right? And I remember writing this slasher film, and it was kind of like in the woods, kind of that typical generic, you've seen it every day crap. They bunch of young adults go out to a cabin, get fucking slaughtered, whatever, right? And I got into the script for that film. I got 60 pages deep into that script and I was like, I hate this. You know what I mean? Like, this is something I would have done 7 years ago and loved. But I think as a filmmaker, you want to, as a writer, director anyway, you want to make sure that whatever you're putting out there as your first feature is going to stand out. It's going to be, you know what I mean? It's going to be something that even if you might not have a superstar actor in it or whatever it is, but you've got to do an idea that can at least show your style.
And they did some superstar performances.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. But if you can showcase your style of what you're trying to put out there as your reputation. This is my my calling card. So that film wasn't to be. So I kind of scrapped that film, and then long story short, the funding that we had for that film, I thought I'll stretch that dollar to whatever we do. That funding fell through, so it is what it is. Then we looked at another script we're going to do called Mercy of Others. Yep. That script was kind of like in the pipeline for 4 or 5 years. That was one of mine, and I was trying to then put that money into Mercy of Others and stuff. And that was a script that I still love to this day. But we just had a lot of issues with that script. Location issues, and it just kind of obviously we had actors that were cast in that script spread out worldwide. I think one of the actors was in Canada, quite a few of them were based in Sydney. So we kind of sat there and it just felt like everything...
Didn't have the Marvel budget for a green screen
Didn't have the Marvel budget for a green screen. But it just felt like that film, to me, at the time, in a dramatic way, felt cursed. It just felt that every time we felt like we were getting that ramping up, it just felt cursed. And I remember sitting there one night and I thought to myself, all right, what do? We got to make something. We got to create content. I got to get back to directing. Yep. I got to get back to doing what I do. So I was sitting in my apartment one night and I was kind of like having ideas about how we can do something. So I actually started with a location. That's the first thing I started with when we got into TKG, was actually location, funnily enough, because that was the biggest thing that was giving Mercy some fucking nightmares. Sorry for language. So
you're fucking welcome.
Have you met me? So we kind of, I thought of an office building.
Yep.
Because that's something we had access to already. So I thought, well, we've got an office building that we ran with our partners, Fusion Studios Australia, who obviously are co-producer on TKG.
So use something you've got.
Use something we've got, 100%. So I was like, there's a resource that we've got. What can I do with an office building? And my mind actually went to Assault on Precinct 13.
Yep.
John Carpenter's original Assault on Precinct 13. And my mindset was kind of running through. Obviously, they had the crooks kind of break into the jail to kill this other. Yeah, it was like this. Yeah. I love it's a great film. So I kind of had that kind of idea of what would happen if an office building, almost, so not exactly a police station, but an office building was getting ambushed. So the working title for TKG was actually called Ambush. It was just a working title until I thought of something better. And so, yeah, that's kind of, so I started with the location, then obviously you start to flesh out your protagonist, antagonist kind of movement. So we kind of put that into the fray. Obviously you got your protagonists, which are these office workers, and then you got your antagonist, which is this gang, this group called the TKG, which is when I came up with the TKG, which is a very weird acronym because the is part of T, but it is what it is. You actually yourself have a beef with everyone that says the TKG.
Well, they're saying the
Yeah.
Kids of Grove.
The kids of Grove.
Yeah.
The kids of Grove. But hey, look, Pete's the only one that pointed that out halfway through filming FYI.
You're welcome.
And when he pointed it out, I could never not hear it again.
You are welcome, friend.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. You pointed out another thing, but I won't mention what that is on here. But
anytime, buddy.
Yeah.
One of the fascinating things is you mentioned, about establishing, protagonists and antagonists, as the office workers and, these kids of Grove. But you've actually managed to write some pretty good underlying themes of like people who are struggling, who are homeless, against, people who currently, have the power to keep them in there, but decide to kick them out of the homes for money. You've got a real, capitalism versus, whatever else in the world is happening vibe right now. How much of the rest of the world influenced you when you were writing this script? Or was it more just a coincidence?
Oh, look, I wouldn't go out there and say I planned this to begin with. Like that'd be a very wanky thing to say. I think for me, I look at characters individually. I don't look at when I come up with a story, I like to put a character in a position and see their reaction to that position.
Yep.
So obviously you're influenced by what's happening in the world and things like that because that's circumstances that we live in every day. So for instance, like you might see a whole bunch. It creates
a relatable environment too.
Yeah, well, I guarantee you right now, you're going to see a whole bunch of films about a pandemic coming up. You know what I mean? Because people are thinking about their reaction to the situation.
You're probably going to see a lot more, middle-aged white guys sitting at home making podcasts.
Yeah, that's right. Middle-aged. Yeah. Don't know about you, bro. Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, so you do use that as influence, but it's more of a setting of an influence instead of trying to say, oh, this is So for me, I was going, look, I wanted to see. So what I did was when I got into it, I kind of wrote the script as a generic kind of thriller. Mm-hmm. And this is how you do. I create my foundation, if you will. So you write a generic thriller, right? And then from there, you go, well, how do I give it dimensions? How do I do it? So you start focusing in on the characters. So going into the film, it's like, well, I want a character A, B, C, and D, right? But when it's all said and done, you've got E, F, G, H, I, the rest of the alphabet pretty much, right?
Yep.
Coming into the fray. So they're kind of helping filling in some plots and things like that. So yeah, I kind of got into TKG and I was looking at both sides of the story. So it's kind of like a yin-yang kind of situation because you've got these protagonists who are doing a very just bastardly thing.
The good people are flawed and, and the so-called bad people, they have virtues in themselves.
Yeah. And then you look at the themes going through the actual villains or the antagonists in this piece, and it's kind of like outside of their, violence spree. You know what I mean? They've got some valid points.
Well, it's a genuine struggle, it's their struggle.
But a couple of the themes with the project that I really wanted to get across was just human nature, funnily enough.
Yeah.
And human instinct, I guess, is the right frame of that. Because it's more about what do people do when their backs are against the wall. So True. You see that's the kind of premise to start the film, is you see a group from the northern suburbs, as we call it, which is that kind of fictional
it's like,
bad area.
Hey, we're in a squalid situation. We don't enjoy this.
Yeah. And so you go through... So you go through this group, right, and you kind of work out, well, their backs have been pushed against the wall.
Makes sense.
So their response to that is going by what they know. The only thing they know,
Survival.
Which is push back.
Bit of a violent overreaction. Yeah,
they're not going to fill out a survey. They're going to write a strongly worded letter. Their ways of going about things is you jump on the street and
bit more
you
strongly
throw down.
Worded, yeah.
Yeah, very more strongly worded in a more physical sense.
As our main villain Jonty said in the trailer, you're all going to die tonight.
That's it.
You can't really make it any more strongly worded than that.
Yeah, you push back. And then one of the beauties getting into that I wanted to explore as the film went on is one of the most fascinating things about me going into this film was how do we get these, not generic, I guess that's the wrong word, but we get these office workers, everyday human beings, right? They're just going to work, right? What I love is their response to everything, because we kind of open on the film on the big news that this kind of bill got passed and they can, mess with the Grove and do their thing. So you got half these workers in this office kind of hate themselves for being there. You know what I mean? Because they know what they're doing. But again, that's what we do as human beings.
They have
we
a
get
conscience.
paid to work.
Yeah,
but we have to get paid to work. This is the job that you do.
Yep.
So you got to do it. And then you got half the office building who've got the mentality of fuck them, better them than us kind of mentality going through, which then you get to see these people. So they're responding to the mental struggle of having, how do I overcome this mental hurdle of making all these people homeless, to then how do I become this hurdle of fighting for my life?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And survival.
It's like the homeless people are now the struggle.
Yeah. And one of the things I really wanted to, one of the biggest things I wanted to really get across in this story is everyone's strengths. Because I think that everyone on this planet has strengths and weaknesses. And I think with TKG, I really wanted to showcase every character's strength at some point. Because I think that, when push comes to shove, whether you're strong enough to stand inside of a boardroom meeting and shout something out and stand up for yourself, or whether or not, you're willing to throw down and fight when you have to. Like, I think everyone's got some form of courage on some level. And that's one of the things I actually want to explore going into this motion picture.
And there's our tagline for the teaser of this episode. But let's also have a look at some of the elements, that started when you were writing the very first draft. Mm-hmm. What made it all the way through to the final feature? Was it a lot, or did it evolve plenty over the shooting and post-production?
It evolved a lot. I think the foundation kept from start to finish. One of the things that actually started off, so
tell me a bit about what the foundation was to you.
For TKG?
Yeah.
Was the revenge story.
Okay.
Getting even, I guess, you know what I mean? For you're going to take our house, we're going to come take yours. So that's kind of the foundation we set through, which is there from the first draft to the think that we shot on like the third draft. So I think by the end of the film we had a fourth draft because we had to work on the fly.
True.
You know, whereas my next project's already up to draft 6, so it just goes to show that we kind of got into this very quickly. We wrote the first draft in 9. I wrote the first draft in 9 days. So it just goes to show that it was never going to be this kind of like evolved piece. But again, it was trying to tell a story of a group with their backs against the wall and getting even for that. And I think that kind of obviously stays until you know the final product is about to point to that. But I think that it evolved in some ways as well. I think the Jonty character evolved heaps. You know, once from the first draft to the last shooting draft. Obviously our main antagonist, but as every character does, I think no character is solid in the first draft. I think that we kind of build a foundation or build at least a blueprint for their character. And I think obviously when we got Mark Casamento on board, who played Jonty, he kind of put his 10 cents in it, and then when he puts his 10 cents in, that gets another 5 cents out of me, you know what I mean?
It changes the dynamic of how everyone else responded to him as well. I remember seeing those auditions.
He was huge, you know what I mean? Yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, he walked into the room and auditioned for it, and I was like, fuck. Like, shit. This shit's wild. So.
Yeah, is this guy acting for the role, or is he actually threatening us? I can't tell.
Well, we don't know. We still don't to this day. We don't know. I'm just messing.
Sorry, we love you, Mike. We swear. So you have mentioned how you wrote a lot of people into this. What challenges come with writing this many characters into a script? Because you're almost building up an ensemble cast here.
That's a good question. So it's kind of funny. Like when I got into it, it was almost like there's two things at play here. I'm going to be incredibly honest. So a couple of things is I think we ended up having like 20 odd characters in this thing. It was kind of wild. So there was about 5 or 6 characters that were just sacrificial lambs, if you will, because you need to have this thriller. We need to get a little bit of a body count going. So there was almost like 3 or 4 characters that we literally wrote in just to kill them. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't be, you know, amiss for me to say that. But the rest of the characters kind of had to have a purpose. You know what I mean? So we kind of started building, as I got into the script, I never wrote this script intending to have 20 odd characters into it. So we kind of got into it. Obviously you need to have your main protagonist. And
so it's more that the characters were needed for the purpose of establishing the script.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? And also for the conflict's sake. You know what I mean? Because we start the film in conflict without it being violent. So we start the film, obviously outside of the opening of the film, which I don't want to obviously spoil too much, but you have the opening of the film, and then as we get into kind of our office lives, as I say, or the office setting, there's already conflict inside that between the staff themselves, you know, as they're fighting with the will to do it. So you need to have characters on both sides of that fence. So you've got your overall scope of, you know, Team A versus Team B. And then in Team A, you need to have some conflict inside Team A. You know what I mean? And there's even little subtle conflict going inside Team B.
Strong A, you know, versus... Yeah.
Mediocre A. Yeah.
I wasn't going to say mediocre, you know.
Is what it is.
Fine. All right, so let's talk about some of the things that make TKG so awesome. What do you think is one of the major strengths of the film that is going to impress everyone when it comes out?
I'm going to say everything. The acting, to be honest. I think that... actually, 2 things. I think the cinematography was fucking amazing. And a lot of the performances were so... Yeah, like, amazing. So, you know, I think that what we did was going into this film, like... And again, anybody that's done an indie film or a micro-budget feature, as they call it, you know, you kind of trying to use every resource you got. And so sometimes you might be shooting in a location over 1 or 2 days and you just got to shoot it, right? Mm-hmm. George, our DP, and also a partner in 88 to 1, keep an eye on that name because I think he's going to be the next big DP to blow. Like, he's going to be amazing. So,
George Owen Davis, G-O-D.
Yeah. So one thing that he and myself spoke about pretty early on in the shoot, because there's a lot of... like, the way we shot it, it was like... We're shooting all this office stuff, and then we're going to move on to location stuff. And when we were doing the office stuff, it was like, I don't remember, George hated it. I was in that office every day because I worked there too, but George hated that office because there was only so many angles you could do. So one of the challenges that we did was go and making sure every scene that we do inside of a location was different. Whether we change up the angles, change up the...
Enough variety to be interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. You know what I mean? And have different characters, change up the blocking. So different characters are always doing different things. They're not always sitting in the same spot or doing the same thing, which it burns up a lot of your schedule, like, if we're being honest. But one of the things that
it adds the variety, which gives you an extra caliber of film.
I think the one thing that I think stands out and across, and again, it's up to the people when they watch it, is if you look at our budget, it's a micro budget feature film. Like, it's tiny.
True. But
one of the strengths of the film is it doesn't look like it. If you just look at the paperwork, you'll say this is a micro budget feature film. You look at the final product and you're going to say, okay, no, it's got more dosh to it. It's got more cash to it. I think that we worked very hard and worked extra hours to make sure we gave it that look. And a lot of credit goes to George, the DP, and a lot of credit goes to the cast. And, you know, we worked with some really good actors. We worked with a great bag of actors, to be honest with you, from some really experienced senior heads on set, there's two guys on set, Mick Preston and Mark Casamento, who veterans of the craft.
They're absolute stalwarts on set.
Yeah, and just killed the role, but also their vibe on set. They brought the best out of the rest of the cast as well. Because then we had a lot of cast around that kind of 20 to 30 age group that they're going to be really good, but they're still working through some things. And they all did an excellent job. And, I think everyone took their roles and their characters, which I guess we're going to talk about casting a little bit, but they took their roles and their characters and did a sick job with it. So, again, for me to talk about what I think's awesome, because I think for me personally, like, I'm going to look at that film, I've watched it, without exaggerating, probably 90 to 100 times, like the full thing, 2 hours worth of the full thing. So for me personally, like, there's going to be a lot of things I think are awesome. There's going to be a lot of things I'm like, nah, man, I wish we'd done, But at the end of the day, man, what makes it awesome, I want the audience to decide.
Fantastic. So you mentioned there, you had the DOP George, obviously, as well as your caster. Were there any other major advantages that you had going into TKG, which, were fantastic in your corner during production or even post?
Advantages? Oh, 100%. Like, I think, which goes back to the start of what we're doing here. We're talking about 88 to 1 Productions. I think the huge advantage we have is we've got our own company with our own resources. So we're not having to...
We own all of the gear.
Yeah, like we don't have to go and hire anything from these other things. So to go into that feature knowing that most of 60% of the locations were on lock. We already got that without, free of charge. All the resources and gear was all ours to begin with. So that was wild.
Playing to your advantages.
Yeah, so it was kind of being able to do that. And one of the biggest advantages, to be honest with you, man, is a crew. Like, the crew was solid as fuck. Like, we had a very young crew, and I can't shout them out enough. Like, I think going into the film, I remember...
They stepped up, and it was pretty long hours.
Yeah, it was... Yeah. But I remember going into this thing, and I said to... I got a producer on board at the time, Breon Sims, about to say Smith. Breon Sims. Sorry, Bree.
On your Bree.
Yeah. So we got her on board early, and I remember saying one thing to her. I said, I want a young, hungry crew. I don't want a crew that thinks that they're going to judge this. Because one thing is, look, man, we've been working in the industry long enough. I remember getting on sets when I was 24, 25, as an AD, first AD, whatever it was. And you got all these people that have been on a few commercial sets, and they just think their shit don't stink. And you sit there going, yeah, you're good at what you do, sure. Yes. But stop reading the fucking MAAA playbook, or stop reading everything. Oh, just because of this $100,000 commercial shoot we did, have this. This is indie. One of the biggest things you got to learn...
You work to your budget, mate.
100%. You got to work to your budget. And one of the biggest things you got to learn, whether you're an aspiring director, producer, crew member, like, if you want to be an AD, like, you've got to play to what the production is. Play to your budget, like you said, 110%. Not everything in Australia is going to have a multi-million-dollar budget. We're going to do indies that are probably going to have a $100,000 budget. So that's why I said I want a young, hungry crew that are going to know what it's like to know what it's like to work when the reward might not be there straight away. It's long-term reward. It's long-term payoff. So that's one
experience. And let's face it, we have used quite a lot of the people we picked up on TKG for our other corporate projects.
100%.
And it's always good to give them more cash on top of the TKG as well.
Which is one of the challenges going in, because this is our first major production outside of Perth, WA. Like, in terms of actual film production.
Yeah,
we've been doing all this crap over here on the East Coast, but we haven't been making film content on the East Coast. So we had to pretty much build a crew from scratch. Which was,
son of a bitch, I'm in.
Yeah, that's it, 100%. So that was one of the challenges as well. And to be honest with you, we found some incredible workers. Absolutely incredible. And I think that, I remember the first couple of days on set, you had all these, young crew members coming in that weren't as too far ahead yet. They were still learning the craft a little bit. And I think that we all, the three of us, me, you, and George, had to take on the role of mentors almost. So we're almost trying to mentor these guys. And within a couple of weeks of shooting, or 5 or 6, 7 shoot dates later, these guys are walking around like pros. And that's just credit to them of how hard and how seriously they took it. And I think that was in our corner to start with, because again, when people are rocking up for a film shoot at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and staying till 8 a.m, you've got a solid crew. And there was barely any complaints, and there was barely any crying or carrying on or drama.
No, that was my job down in the dailies.
Yeah, but that's why we locked you in a room and left you there. Because you'll complain over anything. So
it is my job.
That's it. You're an 88 to 1's designated complainer.
I mean, the word's post-production, but sure, complaining works too.
Yeah.
All right. So, you've begun the pre-production process. You've come up with your script. What changed once you tried to turn that script into a budget? Especially given you said it was a micro budget to kick off.
To be honest, it was funny. So jumping into it kind of changed on the fly. So we kind of, pre-production was a little bit unorthodox on this thing because I had to take off to America for work, right? Just the way it worked out. And again, we're working through a couple of reasons here. So the way the time frame worked, to kind of explain this question. So I wrote the script in May 2018. Mm-hmm. Started casting, I believe, June-ish. And then kind of throughout June, we started pre-production, crewing and casting and all that. And I remember finishing up casting all the main roles, got on a plane and left for about 3 weeks.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then, so I was gone for 3 weeks. So you had me in LA, New York, you had George in Sydney, and we had you in Melbourne. And then our producer here in Melbourne too. So it was kind of like we're doing Skype calls and all this, we're trying to get our schedules together and do stuff. So a lot of it was about how can we just get to day one? And it was a rolling budget. It was crazy because because I was throwing money into this thing literally every week. So it wasn't like we had the lump sum to begin with. So we didn't know necessarily how much we're going to spend. It was crazy, like to go into a film and not really having the target in mind because you got to remember.
I remember the part where, I'd finished doing, like 3 days worth of work on, some of my freelancing stuff, come back and then, all right, the first 2 days worth of that job are going to, battery, food funds?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much expenditures that you don't even think of.
Yeah, money you weren't 2 days ago is already being spent on the rest of the film.
Yeah, except money I earned 6 weeks ago was gone. Money I was earning, in 6 weeks' time was gone. But it was kind of crazy because the whole idea was, and we had to work our schedule out. And the reason we had to shoot in that time frame as well is our DP George had secured a TV gig in Sydney that started, I think, mid-October.
Yes, that's right.
So we're kind of knowing that we only had we had to fit 22 to 24 shoot dates around the current TV gig that he had during this time. So I think it was like Wednesdays to Sundays he was on a job.
Yep.
And then Monday, Tuesdays, and he was in Sydney, by the way. So, he goes Wednesday to Sunday, I'm in Sydney doing a shoot, and then I come over Monday, Tuesday to shoot TKG.
And it's not a break.
Yeah, and it was wild. So he
exhausting
literally
for the
worked
guy.
the whole thing without a break. So full credit to Georgie. So he was doing that. So we had to kind of fit the shooting schedule around that. So we kind of said, well, we have to start this date in August. I think it was like the first week of August, like the 3rd or 4th of August or something like that.
Something like that.
So we had to start shoot then, and then we had to wrap before the 14th of October. So we had to fit 20, with only being able to shoot Mondays and Tuesdays, we had to fit like 22 to 24 shoot dates inside this kind of period. So we're cutting it really fine. So when we kind of had that pre-production thing where I'm over in the States and everyone's away, it was one of those things that we're like, well, we don't really have time to put everyone in a room and talk about what we're going to spend. So we kind of just went
good
down
practice
and said,
for today's situations.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And we kind of got into it and going, okay, well, we've got enough to start the first 4 days of shoot. So that's what we're doing. So I was kind of using a rolling budget. Obviously, we're still doing work through 88 to 1. So obviously, TKG was funded between not just the three of us as individuals, but 88 to 1 Productions as well.
I remember a couple of weeks there where we'd finish shooting TKG. We'd sleep for a couple of hours because it was 6 a.m. as the sun came up.
Yeah.
And then we'd wake up again, go to the studio and do a couple of show reels to pay for that
wild.
weekend at
That
TKG.
that was fucking crazy. But also, I remember like this is how wild TKG shoot was. We had George flying back and forth to Sydney.
Yep.
Every fucking week, you know what I mean? So he'd finish a job on a Sunday night, either fly in Monday morning or whatever it was, Monday day, whatever, because we did night shoots, and then fly straight out Wednesday morning, go straight to shoot where he was shooting. I was still head of operations for Fusion Studios, and that requires travel as well. So every week I was, so I remember the first day of TKG shoot was pretty funny. So we had the first day of TKG, we wrapped up the shoot, and then I got on a plane to Perth. So from Melbourne to Perth, I remember doing that early morning flight because we did the night shoot. I think we wrapped at 6 a.m. Had to be at the airport at 7:30, fly into Perth. We did like one of our showcases in Perth. And then I'm there and then I have to fly back on the red eye to then do the Monday shoot. It was wild. And then obviously George is doing that. I know you were doing freelance stuff and you were doing overnight gigs here or there and everywhere.
Right. Yep.
And it was just one of these things that as we were shooting this film, I was like, fuck. You know what I mean? I was like, shit, like the three of us are all over the shop.
Bit exhausting.
Yeah, and then, but I guess you don't really notice until it wraps.
It's
like,
credit to the rest of our crew for helping us during our times we were a bit tired.
100. And it was like, I remember like when the day we wrapped, I'm just sitting there going, I'm going to bed for 7 days. Like, I don't know what you clowns are doing, but I'm going to bed. I think George went straight to work, but like, I was like, I'm out. I think you got sick at one point. Like, you were like
toward the end, yeah.
Yeah, you were like,
yeah. So I was just delivering stuff, then passing out.
Yeah, you were like the play. I mean, you get hit hard, man. So it was kind of crazy.
It happens.
So, but that, and then there was things popping up throughout the film, throughout the shooting that you just don't account for, like budget stuff. So
Yeah.
you know, you get hit with, all right, well, like a good subtle one's batteries. Like, and obviously the sound kit runs through 16 batteries or some shit, like wild. So when that runs out, there's another 16, and
Yep.
you know, we're pumping like hundreds and hundreds of dollars of batteries into this thing, and then then all of a sudden you're over here, and there might be props that you're expecting to pay this much for, or you got armorers or stunt coordinators coming in, and then 1 minute this is the price, next minute this is the price, and we got hit hard with the location. I think we had a location that started off, we're expecting to pay this much, then it went to this much, then it went to this much, and that was that. When the budget's rolling the way it was, then that's what happens. Is because, to go back to the question, was kind of like, how did we adjust for that? Well, you start, as you do, you just got to make sacrifices, and I think we did our best not to make sacrifices, but when you're working with all budget, eventually, I think we did really well. I think we got to like 16 odd days into shooting before we had to make a single sacrifice. So that's full credit to the crew there, but and the cast as well. So we did a lot of stuff that we managed to work our way through it. But yeah, when you go back and you go, oh yeah, what can you do over again? Well, sometimes you can just be like, find a different location. You know what I mean?
Understandable.
And my crew knows exactly what I'm talking about. So
Nice. And with that, we'll talk a little bit about your cast and your crew after this ad break right now. Thank you, and don't go away.
I am scared. 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 I am scared.
Judas!
I'm sorry.
Past. I will not be doing that.
I am scared. I am scared about something or other.
And wasn't that an amazing advert? That's right. Of course, it was an advert for us. We do showreels, corporate productions, music videos. Come and harass us, and even if you've got ideas during this time of self-isolation and quarantine, we're happy to develop them so that everyone's ready to go once they come out. But we're back here with Mr. Damien Giglietto, my housemate. Also happened to direct a feature film called TKG we're currently talking about. And I know you've been looking forward to this part for a while. Let's talk about your really strong cast, the amazing performances they delivered. And yeah, like, what kind of priority do you place on casting when you're making a film?
Fucking huge. Huge. There was always going to be 3 or 4 characters that would make or break this film. We're talking a little bit about Jonty, Mark Casamento, who Mark Casamento plays. That character is going to make or break the film. That's your Thanos, that's your Joker, that's the character that like I said, makes or breaks it. So casting's so important. So when I go through the casting process, it's important to have more than one chef in the kitchen in that situation. Normally, like, too many chefs in the kitchen's a bad thing, but I also think that one person solo looking is tough.
And you get a bit more of a diverse opinion.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, that's why we've watched tapes together. Like, I always just get opinions, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Because sometimes, like, someone like yourself might pick up something that I don't. And a lot of time, I pick up a lot of shit people don't, but it's always good every now and then to have someone have my back. Yeah, exactly. So it's always good to have someone have my back to kind of do that. I remember when we got into casting for TKG, Lee Smith, who's one of the stars of the film. Haley, one of the co-producers of the film as well, and he's also a casting associate of the film. He killed it in all 3 roles that he played, including the role he plays inside the film. So me and him kind of got into the casting side as a team, so we jumped on in. Lee kind of was the one that kind of started the boat rolling, put out the casting calls and everything like that. So when we kind of watched the auditions, he would then put his 10 cents in, I'd put my 10 cents in, and for the most part, like 9 times out of 10, we're on the same page. Every now and then, there'd be a disagreement or something like that. Now, when there's a disagreement, I love to hear that person's side of why they do or don't like that performer. So an example, I'm not going to say names or anything, but there is somebody in the film that at first glance, Lee was a little bit like, I'm not sure on that person. It was nothing on their ability or anything like that. He was just a little bit on the fence with that person. I put in my 10 cents of what I felt. And then he kind of like, after the callbacks, he kind of came around a little bit as well. But I think it's so important that when you go through that process is to have an open mind as well. And I think that when it comes to casting, and the hardest thing is as a writer-director, I mean, as a director, like, if you're just directing a project, it's fine. You look at, sometimes you get the script, you look at it, you get a bit of an idea in your head. But when you're the writer, you have to write with at least a visual in your head. You know what I mean? True. It's so hard to write a blank, blurry face. So you kind of have ideas, and sometimes they're based off, it might be based off someone you know. It might be based off an actor that's out there, whoever, you know what I mean? So when it came into TKG, it was kind of fun. Jonty was a tough one, you know what I mean, who Mark played, because obviously when I wrote it, I had never met Mark before. So when I kind of wrote that character, he was kind of that figure that I was a little bit like, well, I don't know who's going to play this. You could have, I mean, a good example is when you look at villains, like famous villains out there. We're speaking of Thanos, right? And Avengers, right? He's fucking huge. If you imagine walking across him, you'd automatically be intimidated because you're like, holy shit. But then you got like, you know, Heath Ledger's Joker, who's not a huge, muscly build. I mean, he looks fucked up, you know what I mean?
But he's still intimidating.
Intimidating in that way as well. And then you got other villains that sometimes like, I don't know the character's name, but you look at Skyfall. And that,
yes,
you know what I mean? Like he's Javier, what's his name? Javier.
Yeah.
He plays that, and that's an amazing villain. You know what I mean? And we're actually talking about this yesterday about Marvel villains because most of them are shit. So
true.
We're trying to run through lists of the good ones. You know what I mean? And I remember, you know, when you bring a few of them up as well. So
Loki had potential.
Exactly. So you look at all that. So going into TKG, it was always going to be a big Jonty's going to make or break this film. And actually was, so funnily enough, so something that I haven't actually spoken about before, is I did have somebody potentially in mind for that character. It was a guy I knew. So there's a guy I already knew, and he's muscly. You know what I mean? Like he's kind of a big build kind of guy. And so I thought he could play this well, because I've seen him act as well, and I was like, yeah, he's all right. You know, like he's good. You know what I mean? But when we got into it, and not a knock on him by any stretch, this is just goes to show how good Mark was. Mark came into the audition room and just fucking killed it. Like when you're sitting behind the desk and you're not even paying attention to what's coming next, you're just so lost in that moment. You pretty much knew there and then, Jesus Christ, that's my guy.
Lovely.
You know, that's my guy as well. And then you go into some of the other characters. Obviously, we've talked about Jonty as well. But then you look at the character Mick Preston plays, Nicholas Wright. That was based off an old boss of mine, right? That you knew as well. I remember when I wrote the Nick Wright character, I had this guy in mind, right? Yep. And I was like, this guy was just a dipshit. He was just an absolute dipshit. You know what I mean? And I was like, so you know, and so I was like, oh, I need to. This guy, whoever plays this guy, needs to kind of be good at what he does, even though my old boss was shit at what he does. But like in my head for the story, I was like, this guy needs to be really good at what he does, but just doesn't give a fuck, you know, on how he does it.
Just complete apathy.
Yeah, and so I remember like we were looking through headshots when the submissions all came in, and Mick Preston's headshot came up, and he has this mean looking headshot, right? He's got this face where he's just like fucking really looking mean, right? And so I was like, this is my guy. Straight away, I was like,
check it out,
this is my guy. But then he came into the audition room, and he was like one of the nicest guys I've ever met, right?
Isn't he? He's so friendly.
My fucking guy. He was like so nice. And I was like, oh shit. So before he even did the read, he kind of, you know, shook his hand. I was like, oh shit, this guy's really nice. Like, not that I expected him not to be nice, but he's really nice, you know? And then he comes in and he does the read, and I was like, oh no, fuck, that's my guy. Like, yeah, lovely. 100% that's my guy. So, and that just goes to show a good actor, you know what I mean? He may look mean in his headshot, one of his headshots anyway, he may look real mean, but he nailed that character. So that was another important character for the film.
And also the, you know, third of the TKG triumvirate. How about Maria as Marissa?
Maria was fantastic. So I've known Maria for quite some time. So I've known her, 8 years now. So it was about 6 or 7 when we got into TKG. So Maria's kind of been on the radar for quite some time. You know what I mean? I think that I was also working with her at Fusion Studios Australia.
I don't think I've ever seen a performance of hers that isn't solid.
She's solid, yeah, 100%. She's very solid. And but that character was a funny one as well, because I kind of got into that character, and it was about halfway through writing the script. I was like, shit, Maria would suit this character really well. So I didn't necessarily go into it 100% saying Maria's going to be my lead. But I kind of, when I kind of got into it, I was like, holy shit, she would kill this character. And funny enough, we'd done a couple of showreel scenes, a couple of months prior to getting into TKG, that we worked with Maria, and they're both comedy scripts. But I remember Maria came in and she did these showreel scenes. It was her and Lee. And I was like, shit, she's good. And it wasn't that I didn't know she was good. I forgot. You know what I mean? Because when you haven't been around something like me, I took a break from 2015 to 2018. I didnn't direct a film. Whether it's short film, you know what I mean? It was like a 3-year hiatus almost. So you almost forget what you were like, you know what I mean? So when Maria kind of did those scenes, I was like, she did this one kind of monologue one, and I was like, fuck, that's tight, that's really good. So that's when we got into TKG. It just filled me with a lot of confidence to go, all right, you know what I mean? We'll bring her in. And she, to be honest, and one of the things with Maria, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying it, everyone says they're their own worst critic. She's like that tenfold. She is 100% her worst critic. And so that was my only concern going into it with Maria, is she going to doubt herself too much? Or is she going to be too hard on herself, I should say?
Do you think you need at least some of that to be a strong performer?
100%. And I think there's a time and place for it, 100%. I think when Maria came into TKG, she actually surprised me, because I think that the trust that we had with one another was... I didn't even have to over-explain things to her. You know what I mean? I've worked with actors in the past where I've got to justify why their performance is good. You know what I mean? So I've got to sit them down and say, well, no, this actually works because of A, B, C, D, E. And that's fine. You do that once or twice, that's fine. But it gets to a certain point. If I'm working with an actor over 6 weeks...
At some point, you're supposed to have a rapport.
At some point, it's got to say, I say it's good, you agree. At some point, once the trust is there. And I think with Maria, that trust was there straight away. And I think that, and she was delightful to work with. She was amazing to work with. On that level, obviously putting the trust in her she's kind of like, she pretty much carries the film as a character, she's in so many scenes and she did so many shoot dates and she really took on the responsibility of that character extremely well. So, she was another one that, again, much love to, and she knocked it out of the park. And then you kind of go through so I don't really want to list every actor, and I've got to say something about every actor, if that makes sense. But then there's Lee, who plays Nathan. He's kind of like the comic relief, and he brought a lot to the table himself. I remember when I wrote the script, it was one of those things that I wrote it and I was like, shit, this is intense. You know what I mean? I was like, this is so intense. We need some kind of light. And knowing Lee, that I've known Lee for 5 years now, so knowing that he loves improvising and he loves bringing something new to the table, I was like...
And he's a fun guy.
Oh, yeah, 100%. He's a fun guy. So I was like, look, I'm just going to write this character. I'm not going to put a hell of a lot of thought into this character in terms of... I know what I want him to do and where I want him to go, but I'm not going to build his character. I maybe wrote 2 or 3 lines in there that are just kind of like inside jokes between me and him. But I remember when I pitched him the character, I sat him down and said, you do you. You know what I mean? I was like, you do you. Be my light, you know what I mean? And he did, and he said it. He's the first one to say it. This film needs comedic relief, you know what I mean? I made him sound more masculine than he is, but
this film needs more comedy.
Yeah. So he was the first to be like, this film needs this, and I was like, all right, man, you do you. You know what I mean? You do you. And again, I remember doing the first, I'm gonna say test screening of the film. The first time we showed it to other people, they laughed at all of his shit, you know what I mean? Which is what they're supposed to do, which is great. So he killed that. And then you've got kind of so many other cast members who, like Henry Torres, who plays Jason, the security guard, loved working with Hennes, man. He was sick. He was great. Good personality, good energy on set. And that's another key thing with casting, right? Is it's not just about can they do the role. So when I do the audition process, the other thing that you got to think about is, can I work with this person for long term? Yeah, I remember back in the day when we were doing our shorts. We came up in Perth, WA, right? So that was an interesting kettle of fish over in Perth, and I'm sure it's like this in every city. So I'm not singling out Perth, but the town's so small, and reputations grew quick, and reputations never grew quick over someone that had good skill, bad skill. it was either they're a fucking gem on set or they're an absolute arsehole on set.
There was no middle ground.
There was no middle ground. You're either fucking a dickhead or you're fine. You know what I
Or
mean?
you're nobody.
So when we got into TKG, one of the biggest things, and over in Perth it was easy because when we're doing all of our shorts, Perth's so small, everyone knows everyone. So, you know, if I've never worked, say, you know, you got Joe over here who's an actor. You know what I mean? I've never worked with Joe before, but I know about 10, 15 people that have. So you can kind of do the auditions, get on the phone and say, yo, like, are they, you know, what are they like? And they'll give you their own opinion on that person. And over here, it's just like, we didn't know them. So when we kind of got into TKG, it was like, holy shit, I've just got to go off the vibes I'm getting in the room. And so the way I kind of work it is I like to do the audition process, then you do your callback process, and then usually have a sit down at some point, like a meeting or something that you can, because that's when I figure people out. Like put me in a room with them, I'll ask them a few questions, we start going back and forth. One of the things you try to get away with, anyone that's got arrogance to them, like everyone's got arrogance to them, but if you can check that shit at the door, that's fine. I can work with that.
When arrogance, you know, is boosted or, you know, it's confidence that can be backed up with skill.
Well, the other thing with cast as well is, I mean, I've done one thing I'll never let happen on my shoots. I'm sure a lot of directors do this too, so I'm not the only one. But like, is never let actors step on other actors' toes. And that's one thing that really grinds my gears is when you got an actor that's out there with an agenda. So when a performer's got their own agenda because they want their character to stand out in a scene and they want their character to do this and do that, then you just see I'm trying to think of the word.
And if the character's not meant to do that, it's a detriment to the film
but
anyway.
it's such a selfish choice. You know what I mean? To go, well, I want this, so I'm going to manipulate the scene. I'm going to start telling the other actors how to do something. I'm going to start
hogging the limelight a bit.
Yeah,
you know,
and you sit there, and I witnessed a lot of that. And I witnessed a lot of that as a first AD, like over times. Like I mean, I could list out shoots. I'm sure other people would throw me in the mud, but like, you know what I mean? For shit I've done, I'm not going to do the same thing, but. You know, I've worked on a lot of shoots as an AD where I've just seen actors do that. So one thing that I'm very strict on is the reason why I judge personality so hard is because I don't want to be in a situation where I turn my back, you know what I mean, and then somebody's telling, you know, Mark or Mick or Maria or someone, you know what I mean, oh, you should be doing this, or set me up with this. Because then you sit there going, well, hang on, that's not part of this long form story. And that's the biggest difference between features and shorts. This isn't shit in isolation now. We're trying to tell a story over a long journey of time. So with TKG, I like to think we're blessed because we had none of that. Like we had a cast that got along like a house on fire, good energy. All of them had great energy. Like they'll make you laugh. They'll make you fucking like, you know what I mean? So that they do. They're a great cast. So we're kind of blessed in that way. And I think that's what happens with indie filmmaking. Like, when you haven't got a big budget to go and get, you know, your big names and shit, and, you know, I guess in Australia, people like to think of the, you know, oh, so-and-so did Home and Away, or so-and-so did Neighbours, let's get them on. It's like, nah, man, not saying nothing on them, like, if they're great and they're right for the role, 100%. But there's
a massive talent pool here in Australia.
It's huge. And, like, when we got into, I mean, one of the things at TKG is I looked at them going, fuck, like, how have you guys not blown up yet? Like, holy shit. Like, there's at least 3 or 4 of these guys that should already be on network TV. 100%. Like, it's wild to me that hasn't happened yet. And it's like, and that's just the people that got the roles. You know, when we're doing the audition process, there's probably like 7 or 8 or 9 other actors that, rightfully so, on their day would have been in this film too. 100%. So casting is so important for multiple reasons, because I think, one, if you obviously you're casting for talent who can play the role, but also and again, we use Mick and Mark as an example, right? These 2 guys brought the best out of the rest of the cast too. So when they were on screen doing something with one of these other actors, they're bringing the best out of them. So if you're also casting, you know, say cast person A, if person A's energy is so good and their talent's quite good, but their personality and they're approachable and they're giving back to these other younger performers on set, you're going to get better performances out of those people too. And that's one of the things I thought we were blessed with, having these 2 senior heads on set that were also giving back and bringing the best out of these other performers. So that's what goes into it as well. So it's not just as simple as who's the best at the role. It's like, I always say everything, like casting and crewing, it's like building a sports team. Like, you know, you need your backs, you need your forwards, you need your midfields, your ruckman and all that kind of stuff. And you got to put that all together. You know what I mean? I think that's what we did. That's why, you know, we take the process of not just doing one audition, you got the role, see you later. You know what I mean? It's, what are they going to be workable? Are they going to, you know, be approachable? You know, can we have actors that aren't going to demand a trailer and sitting there the whole night. So no, we're blessed, man, and like I said, I got nothing but love for my cast.
Fantastic. So you've finished all your cast. Tell me about the vibe at your first table read for the film. You've brought them all together. This will be the first time you're hearing the film.
Yeah.
How'd that go down?
It was pretty fucking, from memory, it was pretty like weird at the first. Not because people made it weird. I think it was the first day it felt real that we were doing this. You know what I mean? And I think that when we read the script, and I think, when I gave the script to you and to George and Lee and the other producers and stuff, I got a lot of look, not so much from you and George, because you guys know me, so I'm going to do it regardless of what you tell me.
Yep.
But I remember our producer and even like a few other guys were kind of looking at me going like, really? Like this film? I even got told by someone close to me not to do it. You know what I mean? Because I like the script, it might be too big and just, chillax on that. And I was just like, yeah, just hold my beer. You know what I mean? So when the table read came, it was the first time it felt real. It was the first time that we're fucking doing this. And I remember there was, I think, the day or a couple of days before I jetted out to America. So, it was good. For me, it was awesome just to see everyone. It gives you a real visual of the film because you get to see everyone together. Because you did the audition process and we did a couple of chemistry reads with a couple of characters. But when you get to see your whole TKG group together and you get to see all your office staff together and you get to see all these people kind of rolling together, it was kind of cool. And then you hear it out loud and, yeah, I guess for me, it just... It felt good. Like you hear it out loud, okay, this works. You know what I mean? Usually in a table read, if I hear my words back at me, I'm like, oh, fuck, that's not good. You know what I mean? That's not good. I mean, if we get a grammar error, you're the fucking... I was going to say grammar something, but you're the grammar police. I'll say police. But...
Very diplomatic of you.
Very diplomatic of me. So, again, that's the thing I'm terrible at. But, one thing
that's
is...
all right. I'm here to make sure, that we spot all the grammatical errors you kind of Nazi coming.
Yeah. So, Yeah, so it was good. Like the table read was great. Like I said, and I got a chance to sit down with everybody and pitch my vision to the whole cast at one time, which is great because it just saves repetition. And when you see them all together and you can pitch your vision and this is the kind of story we're trying to tell and this is how we're trying to tell it. And that's a good. And one thing is when you do that, you get to see everyone's reaction to that. So you get to learn who's in, like who's 100% in, who's sitting there going, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, you know what I mean? So you
Pretty sure that was me.
Yeah, you're in the back.
But I was in whether I liked it or not.
Yeah, 100%. You don't like my shit, it's fine. But it's all good.
Someone has to.
Yeah, well, that's it. Hopefully the audience. So, I make films for audiences, not yourself. So it's all good. But no, it felt good. Table read felt good. I think that's the day that everybody was like, we're in 100%. Let's go.
Nice. So not just your cast, you have elaborated on this before. A good indie film is also built with a crew.
Yep.
Right before shooting, how did you feel about your crew?
I didn't meet most of them. So a lot of the crew I met on day one, funnily enough. So I met, I think, a few of them. Obviously, my art department I met earlier because we had to have meetings and prep and stuff like that.
So how did you feel the night of day one then, right before shooting? You haven't met your crew yet. You've got an amazing cast. Like, what was the Damien feeling?
To be honest, I was confident. I was just extremely confident. I wasn't thinking too much about the crew itself, if that makes sense. Like, I had so much on my mind in terms of we're about to start this journey. We're about to start this feature film. So I wasn't overly looking around and going, what's what? But as the day goes on, if you ask me how I felt when we wrapped day one, that's probably the better question because it's like, well, I'd kind of been able to see.
That is the next one.
Yeah. So you kind of get to see how everyone kind of goes and responds and stuff. And like I said, I got what I asked for, which is good. A young, hungry crew. There was a few guys that just jumped out straight away, and I was like, "Fuck, who are these guys?" And there was one or two crewmen. I shouldn't mention names because then I don't want to single people out in a good way, you know what I mean? Because then the other people think, "What about me?" kind of shit. Mm-hmm. But there was probably two or three. I'll say three crew members that within the first 10 minutes of knowing them and seeing them work, I was like, these guys are jets, and they
have initiative,
and they're going to work with us for a long ass time.
And quite a few of them have,
and pretty much all of them have. You know what I mean? One of them I wish could work with us a bit more. The other one's worked with us quite a bit, and the other one's like our adopted child. So,
get out of my room.
Yeah. Like I said, but I felt good, and as the shoot went on, I thought their response to certain things as well, and the beauty of it was as well, you got to see how they responded to what we were doing, I think, and that kind of gave us a bit of energy. I think a lot of these crew members came up, and a couple of them in particular were kind of like, holy shit, like we haven't seen a film like this done here yet.
Oh, surprise.
And one of them, part of it's like, okay, well, you're young to it, you're new to it, so you can only take that with a grain of salt. But two, it also shows, well, fuck, like, let's do it. Because part of doing this film is, at the time of doing it, we did it because, one, we wanted to do it. Two, this is what we do and this is how we do it. We're going to do it regardless of what anyone tells us. But when it was all said and done, one of the things I wanted to show is to go, and the reason why I like doing this today is because you show people it's possible. Like, it's fucking possible. Like, if you're sitting on your, if you're an indie filmmaker and you're sitting on your ass waiting for something to happen, you're going to be sitting on your ass for a freaking long time.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, so when we were doing this, one thing that I loved, and one thing I really loved about it was when TKG wrapped, and this is how good this crew is, you saw them jump out of the blocks. And a lot of them, this was their first project that kind of really been, or at least first outside of film school or outside of shorts that they'd kind of worked on. And a lot of them hit the ground running. And they were just out there doing their thing, and you were sitting there going, fuck, that's wild to see, which is great. And if we, and it's more of it shows who they are as people. You know what I mean? They're hungry, they're going to want it, and they're going to keep going. And a lot of them are going to have really long careers ahead of them.
And yeah, that was fantastic. So once you've gotten into production, you're shooting, the dynamic changes here. In pre-production, you're planning ahead for a lot. When you get to production, most of it's day by day.
Yeah.
What were your daily objectives for production? What were the things that you needed to see at the end of every day to feel like you were still, the ship was still in the right direction?
I was just, to be honest, I didn't take it day to day. I took it scene to scene. So I kind of looked at each scene and going, okay. And one of the things is going into it, like coming off short films, you go, okay, what are my challenges going to be? So you set this whole thing in your head of, these are my challenges. This is what is going to be the obstacles I have to overcome. And what you learn is those obstacles are a piece of piss. It's like, oh, just prep this and prep that. And it's make sure you keep an eye on this, keep an eye on that. But it's the little things that get you, you know what I mean? Like, you got to keep an eye on every character. And one of the biggest things that you're doing is making sure that all your themes that you're trying to bring across the table are coming across. Because there's so many small moments in a film that, you might look at it, and this is one thing that when you see a director stressing, and this is what I'm going to say to every fucking actor out there and crew members, it's not personal. When a director's stressing, it's not because you did something wrong. It's not because the acting wasn't good. And I've got to explain this 100 times over, because actors stress. You know what I mean? When they see a director kind of cut, walks away, it's 9 times out of 10, it's got nothing to do with your performance. Because what happens is when you put the script together and you go to put the film together, it's like anything. It's like a roadmap, right? So you got to draw a line to say, here's this turn, here's this turn, here's this turn, here's this turn, blah, 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 right?
And if you don't complete the turns, you haven't got a journey.
Exactly. So every little scene, there's going to be a little turn in there. There's going to be a part of the map that you're trying to draw. Now, some of them are just pit stops, so it doesn't matter. You can fuck it. It doesn't matter. But there's so many subtle moments, and especially in character arcs, like, holy shit, in character arcs, there's like, one thing that we built in TKG, I think we've got like nearly all these main characters have an arc in some way. You know what I mean? Like, we show Nicholas Wright's arc and Marissa's arc, Jonty's arc. Like, everyone's got an arc in some way. And each scene, there's got to be something to it. So, and the reason I said I took it scene to scene is because you might get compromised by the budget. You might get compromised by the schedule. So, you might have your first AD going, oh, shit, we're like 2 hours behind, so we've got to try cut some times out of this scene. And I'm saying, one of the purposes of this scene, it might just seem like a generic sit-down chat, like we're doing right now, but there's got to be a line of dot. There's got to be a moment, a look. He says a line or she says a line, and there's a reaction to that line that's going to actually build up to something in an hour's time, or like, in the film-wise, an hour's time. So these are things that you've got to be ultra prepared for. And not so much, and this, again, everything I say, take it granted. Like, this is my opinion, this is how I work. So everyone wants to put time into their shot list. I mean, shots going to change. Put time into prepping your story and what you're trying to tell, and that's the biggest thing. Like, if making sure you're covering each moment you're trying to create to establish these arcs, because that's what makes a good film over a mediocre film. And everyone can sit there for hours and days on end and creating shot lists and storyboards and everything like that, but guess what? 9 times out of 10, that shit's going to change.
Solid advice.
Yeah, and especially when your AD comes up to you and says, oh, we've lost an hour today, so now we need to make up that hour, rah, rah, rah. So we might not be able to do the 6 shots we planned for this scene.
Now, you were particularly... I'm going to say you had a skill for being annoying to your AD on set, and that's because of your background as a rather accomplished AD. What did going into this, being a good AD and a director at the same time, like, did you have to shut down the AD side of you more often than you wanted?
No, I can't. That's, for me, like...
We could tell.
And again, our AD, he did a great job. Like, he was up against it for the show. Again, poor guy, like... first feature film for him, and it's like, oh, this ambitious fucking underfinanced project that we're driving cars through fences and choreographed fight scenes, throwing people off build. Like, so for him, it was crazy, and he took on 150% of what he was capable of taking on. So, but for me personally, I think that as an AD, like there's certain traits as myself as an AD that aren't just because I'm an AD. You know what I mean? Like being a leader and being able to think on the spot and doing these things. These are things I can never switch off. You know what I mean? So when it came to TKG, and the hard part is, and this is what does make an AD's job a nightmare, so if you ever get offered a first AD position with me, just be mindful. It's because I've done it before, and I also know how we're going about it. So there's times where, as an AD, what I used to do is I wouldn't just pitch the problem. I would pitch a solution. So it's like, okay, we're an hour behind, but here's what I'm thinking, bang, 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 right? So that's what I'm doing as a director as well. Like, I'm very aware of the clock. As a director, I don't put the clock in my pocket and forget that we're on a schedule. The clock's constantly on my mind. I'm constantly checking the time. I'm constantly all over it. So, you know, when I'm in a situation where, and of course, if anything, you look at it the other way around. How does being a former AD affect the AD? No, how does being a former AD affect me as a director? It's because it gives me the capabilities of saying, okay, I know what's important in this scene. I would rather spend the extra time on this scene. Here's a scene that I'm 80% sure could end up on the cutting room floor. Let's fuck with that one. You know what I mean? Let's mess with that one. So that, and I guess, and the biggest challenge is communication for that front. You know, can I communicate that to my AD properly? Well, on the fly, probably not. On the fly, I'm probably like, shut up, man, I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So to his credit, he did really well with that, because there's so many times where I can't have the time to stand there and, you know, and then
So a lot more trust between you and your AD than there would be on most other sets.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of trust there. You know what I mean? I think our AD was Josh, who, you know, he was great. Like, you know what I mean? And the thing as well, again, I can't stress this enough. I remember he's young. You know, I remember doing my first feature film when I was young as an AD, I mean. And I thought I was great. And then about 6-7 years later, I was like, oh, no. Like, I was fine. I wasn't bad, but I wasn't great. You know what I mean? And I know that he will have a long career ahead of him if he keeps at it, because, you know, he's ticked a lot of the right boxes, and I think he'll move forward and find where to fit.
Lovely. So by the end of the shoot, obviously you've now been working really tightly with this cast for what, 6 to 8 weeks at this point? On off, but still 6 to 8 weeks.
Solid 3 months together, yeah.
How did your relationship with the cast develop as shooting continued?
Yeah, pretty well. Again, like anything,
is there any particular dynamic that changes, you know, once the camera starts rolling, you know, and you were doing dailies as well, so you were able to see the scenes, you know.
Yeah, it was, you learn pretty quick. Like, I guess so when you start off, you learn shit. So as a director, so there's only so much you get out of an audition room. And this is why, as we were saying before, the audition room is so important, but there's only so much you can learn from the audition room. So what I was doing is, as you get into filming, you also find what works for each character. So this goes into strategy. This is like coaching. That's why when I'm directing, I think I'm coaching, right? Like, again, I go back to the sports metaphor, because you sit there and you're going, okay, who does their best work when? And this is what happened, is because we had a lot of group scenes, like especially in the first half of the shooting slate. We had one scene where there's like 8 characters talking in it at one time. So you go, okay, fuck yeah, you're going to cover that and all this. So you've got to learn how actors prep. So you've got to learn each one of your cast. 1, do you trust them to perform it? But 2, do you trust them to prep it? So the reason I say that
different means of prep for different actors, obviously.
And I think that I saw there was cast members we had on this that would over prepare. You know what I mean? And I'll be like, shit, this is great. They'd come on and they'd have like every...
Did you have after then tone them back?
Not too much, to be honest. Like, they had every corner covered, so if I had to redirect them, they were great. Because they were, okay, well, we've thought of that too. So we're going to do this too. But then you had actors that were kind of... We had 1 or 2 I felt prepped in isolation. So what I mean by that is they would take a single scene and prep that scene without thinking too much about what came before it. So they were nailing... So when you do the first run through or the first block or the first take, depending on when we got around to redirection, is you would have a lot of, oh, that's a great performance. Fucking sick performance, but it don't fit. You know what I mean? So then you'd have to kind of go back through and then do that. So the dynamic kind of changed after. Once you get to learn each actor's tics and traits and, you know, how they prep and what, then you learn how to direct them properly. So, you know, there'd be certain actors where you're like, you got to get their shit done early because they tire. You know what I mean? They fatigue very quickly. And that's not a knock on them because, again, we're doing night shoots. So you might have some actors that are coming off...
Second half of our day started at 2 a.m.
Yeah. So, you know what I mean? A lot of these actors might have a 9 to 5 and they finish work at 5. They're coming to set at 6.
And quite
it's
rightly,
only
they're getting
natural
tired.
by
Yeah.
1 a.m. They're yawning and they're tired. So you look at some performers and you're like, okay, cool. So we got to get their shit done early because they give us their best early. Some actors prefer to kind of go last, or they might want to see how everyone else is doing the scene and then they react accordingly. So they might be good at going, well, I want to see what Pete's going to bring to the table. Once I learn what Pete's bringing to the table, this is how I'm going to respond to it.
I bought just this plant.
Yeah, there you get to the table. So it's all great that, you know, I might sit there and go, okay, well, now I know what Pete's doing, I know what I'm doing, so I want to be shot second. So you start to learn each performer and where their strengths lie. Do they want to be shot in the middle? Do they want to be shot first, last, and everything like that? And how many takes does it normally take them? You know what I mean? We had one actor who was great because it would be like, they would come out with their first take or their first run through. And I'd be like, fuck, I'm in for a long night here because they might be just so off far. And then I have one chat to them, they come out and they're 100% perfect. And you're like, holy shit, they had it in them. But you know what I mean? All it took was a little flick.
Clarification.
Yeah, and then when you know that's how they work, you don't stress about that now. So, and sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes you're like, this actor doesn't prep at all. They're almost coming into every scene, la-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da, and then you sit there going, okay, well, here's the scene, and then you're directing them, they're like, huh? You know, so you're like, all right, so this is what, you know what I mean? So the things like that too. So every dynamic, I think, with every actor changes once you get to know their work pattern. And I think that what comes across is, one thing is, first and foremost is, I normally, and I think this, I like a lot of people on film sets, normally develop pretty good friendships with people they work with, especially on sets and especially the environment we try to create.
You have to.
I think I work best with people that knows you can check that shit at the door, because at the end of the day, first and foremost, we're here to make a project.
We're professionals.
Yeah, and the thing is, so if you're not prepping, you're unprofessional. You know what I mean? Or if you're not, you know, if you are prepping and you can switch on and off, you can have a good time and you can have some fun, and then you can switch back on and get something great.
It's all good to mess around, but if we're not here for the game...
We're BFFs, you know what I'm saying? So I think knowing your work pattern, I think, and we get that as well, not just with the cast, but with the crew as well, because, you know, you've got people like, I mean, I think one of our strengths as a team, me, you, and George, is we know exactly how to switch on and off in a microsecond. You know what I mean? We could be joking around, fucking around. 1 minute, I'm like, all right, let's go, bang. All three of us are switched and ready to go. So I think that's something that comes with time to build that trait over time as well. So that's the biggest thing that changes, I guess, as the scene goes on. You learn more about that as a person and as an actor, and you just use that info accordingly and see how you go. And sometimes it will frustrate you, and sometimes it just won't make you stress at all.
And we will frustrate our audience, though. We're taking another quick break, and we'll be back again to discuss a bit of post-production and what we here at 88 to 1 are going to be doing for you guys in order to help get you through this isolation break and keep your skills handy.
Blake and I are just going over some pre-deployment plans.
Enthralling, I imagine.
By D plus 6 months.
By 6 months?
James, I thought you knew that 9 months was how long it was going to take.
It's perfectly safe, Jay.
This was going to be our time together and things were finally going to be normal.
This is normal for me.
Don't speak to me like one of your recruits.
Then stop acting like one.
I'll be back before you know. How are them?
I know. I just hate this part.
I know all you've ever wanted was a quiet life with me, but I don't know if I can give that to you. I hope you mean it.
Hope you mean it.
And that there was Sacrifice by the talented Lee Smith that also appears in TKG, The Kids of Grover. And that's a project which Damien and us at 88 to 1 now help produce, and we're very proud to hear that it's on Amazon Prime now. Any quick comments on that one?
Yeah, that was fun one. That was one of the things that spawned off from TKG. You know, Lee, who wrote the script, and again, somebody that wanted to tell a story and went out there and did it and did his thing. So he put a lot of blood and sweat and tears into that project. He'll tell you himself. But proud of the project and what it was, and we got to play a great part as executive producers.
All right, so back to TKG. The suffering's over. We're getting to like October, November. What does post look like to 88 to 1?
Suffering's over. I think suffering's just beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, again, it was crazy. So post-production, we got off to a bit of a head start because you were doing dailies throughout the process of filming.
Just transcoding the red footage and the audio together.
Yeah, and I was able to actually cut scenes while we're still filming, which actually did help the shooting process too, because you get to kind of cut what's working, what's not working and stuff. So by the time we kind of wrapped, I think by the last 3 weeks of shoot, which is the last 6 or 7 days, by then we couldn't catch up with daily, so it was kind of once we wrapped, and we had a day of sleep. We kind of got stuck back in. And, yeah, and we got caught back into obviously editing and everything like that. So the first job was to put the assembly together. So putting everything together in the film, everything we shot, which was tough and it was challenging in itself because there was probably 3 or 4 scenes that I fucking hated. Like I was like, I put it in the assembly despite me wanting to literally delete the footage because I was like, this scene's terrible. Like, which is fine when there's out of 100 odd scenes, there's only 4 that I was like, ugh. But nonetheless, we put it in the assembly because obviously that's what you do. And then our first cut ran at 2 hours and 46 minutes for a 96
pretty
page
damn
script.
close to 3, yeah.
Yeah, so that was crazy. So
split into volume 1 and 2 of TKG.
Yeah, I was almost going to release it as a miniseries, but that was the thing. So we kind of then was okay from that assembly cut. But the problem is with the assembly. So pretty much we got to October, we wrapped the film, we started putting the first cut together when we could. We couldn't finish the cut because we had one more pickup day of shooting to go.
That's right. Yeah.
Which was literally just the intro of the film, like the kind of hallway shots that you see in the intro of the film.
Wasn't that an amazing location?
Fucking brilliant. It was the cheapest too. It was fucking wild. It was cheapest as well. So,
fun fact, that shower head you'll see at the start of the film was actually genuinely laying on the floor of the shower.
Yeah, we did not do nothing with that. We literally found it. That's lying there.
That was in the shower.
We did put the blood on it though, so just in case we did put the blood on it. But yeah, so we got to. I think we shot the pickup day, which was the last day. We shot in January from memory. I remember it was
something like that. Yeah,
fucking hot. So it was in these kind of tight hallways and stuff like that. We got some extras in there, and that was one of the things actually we did in the fly. So there is a few extras you see in the film, at the start and with the protesters as well. They were never actually scripted. So both the hallway, so you get to see more from because pretty much what happened is I am backtracking, so I do apologize, guys. But what kind of happened was we got into the film, and the original idea I had was to kind of just have this kind of like opening credit sequence where we just have like TKG bashing the shit out of people as well, because I thought that'd be kind of cool. And then we kind of got into shooting, and I was kind of like, no, I want to see the opposite side of that. I want to see how this property firm has affected the lives of the Grove, because I wanted the Grove community to almost be a character. So we kind of made this protest scene. So that the one of the opening scenes in the film you'll see is a police car rock up and they kind of walk through the protesters. So that was never in the script. So I made that up on the fly.
And we got a full class of Victoria University students.
The funny thing, this is advice to filmmakers, seriously. Like when your back's against the wall and you think things aren't going your way, spin a negative into a positive. So the whole reason this shoot came up is we actually had a different shoot day scheduled for the day we did the exterior building, right?
Yes.
So we had a different shoot day in there, right? And it was one of these shoot dates where, 2 of the actors became unavailable. One of the actors in the film, who's actually a close mate of mine, had some family things pop up, so he had to pop over to Sydney. So we're like, okay, we lost him, and then this other thing happened, and someone's schedule changed, we lost this actor, and it was almost like we're going to have a wasted shoot day. And I turned around, I said I think I spoke to George and my producer, and I was kind of like, no, fuck that, keep the shoot day. So instead of delaying that shoot day, let's just keep the shoot day. And I had this idea that I wanted these protesters out the front of this building because I wanted the Grove, because to go along with the opening credit sequence that we did, and the shelter scene that we did, I wanted the Grove to be a character that we can see in this film, which is people that are angry, upset, devastated, homeless, and all this kind of stuff. So we put a call out for extras with like 4 days notice, 5 days notice or something like that. And so originally we're going to use a different building than the building you actually see in the film. In my head, we had this other building that was actually close to our studio. So I was like, it's great, it's close to our studio, it's going to work. That's what we're going to do. So we put this call out for extras, and I think I start now or something like that. And all these people kind of signing up to be part of this, to be extras and stuff like that. And so I was like, great. So we built this, and one of our art directors, he did a great job, Ben.
Yes.
He did a great job kind of putting up this, he made protest signs and banners. And
there was like all the little like tape and stuff as well.
Yeah, on a few days' notice. So
Yeah.
he worked his ass off, and for a few days' notice just to fucking put this shit together. So full credit to Ben, who's out there. But yeah, we kind of put this thing together, and I was like, okay, this is going to be, you know, our protest scene. And then like the day before we shot it, we had to change location. So for some reason, a permit didn't get put through or some shit. I was close to being like, let's just guerrilla this shit and do it anyway. But nonetheless, we had to change course to a different building, which was, we ended up using Victoria University. So shout out Victoria University, which I ran past today, funnily enough. But nonetheless, so we kind of had it there. But most of the extras we had either didn't get the memo or what happened, but barely any of them. I think we had 5 extras show up. So that shit was wild. So I'm sitting there on the day and I'm not happy. Like and this is what happens when you think things are going against you. But then I remember we had this sign that said filming in progress that we ended up bringing last minute. So we bought that last minute, let's just put a sign out so people know what we're doing. And funnily enough, these 2 teachers from, I don't know if I should be saying this actually, but 2 teachers from a class at Vic Uni was walked past and said, oh, what are you filming? And our producer was like, we're feature film, blah, blah, blah. Hey, you don't happen to want to be extras? They're like, oh, yeah, we've got 2 class full of people. We'll bring both of the classes down.
Fantastic.
Next minute, this whole classes of people come down and we filled the rest with crew and it was wild. So that's what happens. So sometimes when you think things are going against you, you can think on the fly. And without that scene, I think the opening misses a lot. And I think that we kind of...
And it makes a great dynamic there of relating to the people.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we kind of did that, which then led into the pickup day when we did the hallways and stuff. So we kind of brought more extras in, and we got to showcase more of the Grove as a character in a community to kind of put that into perspective as well. So once we wrapped that shoot day, we had everything in the can. So we kind of cut the film together. That's when we got our first assembly officially done with the 2-hour, 46-minute cut, which I watched twice. FYI, watched that fucker twice. Wasn't fun. 6 hours worth of doing something that I hated. But then, yeah, from there, pretty much post kind of started properly. We're able to go. So I did the assembly, and that's when I was able to go to Pete and George and say, all right, you boys do your thing and put some...
George cut a lot of scenes out of it.
George, yeah, he did. I had to put some of them back. But George had his... And the beauty about
our priority was get it under 2 hours and it'll be nice and punchy, and we did.
Yeah, and I think that working, and this is where working in a team's great, because... my biggest fear as a writer, director, is you come in and you do your first cut and you think everything's necessary until it's not there anymore. So, you know, there was about 4 scenes I was like, I'm cutting it. I'm happy to get rid of this, and I'm happy to get rid of this, and I'm happy to get rid of that. And then I think I gave the cut to George, and then he kind of, he did something to the cut that I didn't even know what he did. You know what I mean? But next minute was short. And I was like, okay, but I don't think anything's missing. And I think, Pete, you're one of the people that said to me, if I don't notice it's not there, it's not important.
Yeah.
So it's a quote that Pete kept running with in post-production. And I kept being like, yeah, fuck yeah. But like, you know.
But he didn't notice.
Yeah, I only missed one thing, but that's fine. But yeah, so that process was happening for over a couple of months. And then obviously Genius Scoring came on board. So
talk a bit about these guys.
Yeah, so Damo...
Genius were amazing.
Yeah, Damo and Jace I've been working with for a while now. They started with me back in 2012 on a film called The Wild Couple. So we got introduced by a mutual friend of ours at the time, me and Damo, so Damo and Damo. And then obviously Damo brought Jason to the fray. And so these guys scored 3 of my short films. It was the first time I ever had an original score put to my work. And these were the guys that showed me how important scoring is. Not that I never realised it wasn't, but back early in your career as a young filmmaker, that's the last thing on your mind at the time.
Do you remember when they first started sending through like teasers of the score they were doing?
Yeah.
We threw them over scenes. And just sitting in the edit suite looking at that.
Oh, the second... one thing I can't...
It added tension, man.
One thing I don't like necessarily doing is putting temp scores on. You know what I mean? Because you put temp scores on and sometimes you get either glued to that, and especially if it's temp score, we're going to put fucking Hans Zimmer over something, you're like, holy fuck. You know what I mean?
I mean, he makes anything sound amazing.
Yeah, but when the boys started, and the boys were great, they didn't make us wait. They were sending over fucking samples and motives and shit like that. And as soon as you start hearing the TKG theme, the second I heard that, I was like, fuck, this is dope. This is great. So that was wild. So when those guys came on board, and they were always going to come on board regardless, and they're hard work, and then they're talented as fuck. And they make a huge difference to TKG. This score, and the whole thing's original score. So the whole film, from start to finish, I think 100 minutes of score is in this film, which is fucking... And when you think of it, guys, as an independent, micro-budget short film, and you've got composers that work their fucking asses off, so underpaid to deliver a score like that, it's fucking wild, you know what I mean? So... they did their thing. So they were just sending through, and again, we're sending through scenes. So I think we sent them the first cut. I freaked them out with the first cut because I think that was the 2 hour something cut. I think it go down to 220, 230 or something. And they were like, no, sorry, I didn't know. I sent them the 2 hour 46 cut first.
Yes.
So I sent them the 2:46 cut first, and let's just say there was an interesting phone call after that. Like, dude, what the fuck? And I was like, relax, bro. It's getting cut down. It's getting cut down.
We put almost, 50 minutes off that?
Yeah.
The final runtime's what, 2 hours 50, hour 53?
Hour 50, I like to say hour 52 without credits because I can't control the credits.
Yep.
So, we did our part. But, so yeah, they started putting the score into play. And again, like so the way I work with them, I'll just kind of run through how I work with the composers and stuff. At the end of the day, and it's important for filmmakers to understand, you can't control everything. You know what I mean? You can't, there's some directors out there that'll be across every little thing and they'll know every note. I'm not a music guy. I know I know the themes I want. I know what I kind of want to put in there. And the beauty about working with...
You know what the feeling you want is.
Yeah,
and they
100%.
can translate your direction to feeling.
And yeah, exactly. So the way I work with Genius is I sit down with them before they start. We just have a conversation about the film. And so we have a conversation about my vision for the film, what I want it to be like, what I want to come across, what's important to me, who are the main characters, what's their deal, what's their story, what are they about. And then these guys take all this shit I talk to them about, and they take it all and they come out with these fucking motives. They know how to translate that into certain bars and notes and this and that. Again, I'm not a music guy, but what these guys do is incredible. And 9 times out of 10, like, if I don't like something, I'll tell you. You know what I mean? That's you have to as a filmmaker. But when these guys give me stuff, there's only, like, ever rarely it might be like, a little less of this or a little more of that. But most of the times it's spot on.
They're bang on, yeah.
Yeah, and it amazes me for this whole film. Like,
it made my job easier in sound post as well. Like, the moment the music got slammed in.
There's 5 or 6 themes in this film that's incredible. Like, from a music point of view, it's incredible.
Yes.
Like, it blows my mind. And I wish I could turn around and be like, oh yeah, I did that. No, of course I did. I know, these guys did it. So when you're blessed to go, okay, well, here's some boys I've been working with for 8 years now, or now it'll be 8 years. And you got that rapport, which comes down to chemistry and trust and all that kind of stuff and having a good relationship. So, working with the guys was amazing again. So I'm looking forward to running it back with them again on the next feature.
And there will be one.
Yeah, 100%. Sooner than later. Fucking no quarantine's going to stop me. But yeah, so then...
But we will respect all laws.
Yeah, 1.5. But yeah. So that was that part of post, obviously with the score.
Yep.
And then obviously the edit. So the edit kind of bounced between the 3 of us a bit, and then we come between once we got the film to a certain point, I think it went from 2 hours 46 to like 2:30 to 2:20, 2:15, 2:05, 2 flat. Then it got to 2 flat, and
then hour 52.
Hour 52. So a lot of that was just bouncing through. I think Pete did the last cut of it, which just trimmed that last 8 minutes just by doing without cutting anything really, just trimming. I think
just making frames work for flow. Getting pacing up in the right spot, making sure that cuts between lights work.
Which is wild because that was my thing as well. Because one thing is, and George will vouch for this. So if you want to reach out to George, reach out to George. But one thing with Pete is we're always like, do we want him to do anything? Because like, you'll start cutting shit. You just will. Like there'd be a major film and Pete would be like, nah, out. We don't need it.
If it needed to be cut, it was going to get cut.
Yeah. So when we gave him the last round, I was a little bit worried. And then I watched it and I was like, it's fine. And then he was like, he didn't cut anything. He was just trimming, which was good. So we kind of did that.
I think I literally cut one line and I even looked over at you and asked, hey, do you care if I cut this one line?
At that point, I didn't.
I can tell.
But now I've had like a while to think about that. But yeah, so pretty much like with the cut, we started like work. And that's another thing that was, because you asked before, like, what are some of the advantages in our corner? And again, not just do we have the resources to carry out production, but we've got the resources to carry out post-production. So being able to have 3 people that can be multifaceted in what they do. Like,
2 editing machines as well.
We've got 2 editing machines. Well, technically 3 if we count George's and Sydney as well. So there's 3 edit machines between us. And it's like you got 3 guys that, I might be a writer, director, and producer. And then, Pete dabbles in everything. You do everything. Post-production, supervise, fucking sound,
whatever needs to be done.
Acting.
Only once.
Yeah. Never regret that. And then obviously George, who, cinematographer, lighting, great, everything. So despite the fact that the 3 of us have our key areas that we think about, we all know how to jump on an edit machine and start cutting. And that's what the advantage was with TKG, was being able to go, well, the 3 of us can do our cuts, but we also trust one another. So I have worked with other editors in the past that, you give them your film and they start just fucking tech cutting. And you're sitting there going, what the fuck are you doing? I remember we did a short film a while back and I worked with another editor and it was like, what the fuck's this? Like, you've cut out the heart of the film almost, you know what I mean? Because, you're cutting what looks pretty, but each to their own. But so we're able to do that, which I thought was a massive advantage to have the 3 of us. And again, the three of us always go into it with what's best for the film. You know what I mean? Like, fuck my ego for a minute. You know what I mean? Like, if it's up to me,
fuck your ego all the time. I live with you.
Just for the minute. But you know, you look at certain things, like, you know, you get to a certain level in your career, sure, you can go make a 3.5 hour movie for Netflix. And I love Scorsese, don't get me wrong, you know what I mean? He's one of my idols. But, you know, you look at that going, well, at this stage in our careers, we can't do that.
Right now, we're less about the 3 hour cinematic epics, we're more about the theme parks.
That's, yeah. So, but yeah, so that helped with the editing. And then I thought we got to that process pretty quickly. Yeah. Like, we kind of got the lock-off done reasonably quickly, but then challenges with an indie film. You know what I mean? That's the hard part. And one of the biggest things you say is when you get into pre-production, everyone's excited. Oh, right? Yeah. This is one of the biggest challenges with post. So I'm not sure if that's one of the questions, but one of the biggest challenges of post-production is you go into pre-production with so much energy and excitement, right? Because everyone's like, oh, this is new, this is fresh.
You're on a high, it's done.
Yeah, we're getting in. Then you get into the shoot, and the shoot, everyone's on board. Everyone's there. They're ready to fight. They're ready to go and give themselves and their blood, their sweat, and everything like that. Post is boring as fuck, unless you're in our position.
Well, that and the entire job in post is to clean out most of the blemishes and the flaws and stuff, which means you're spending a lot of time looking at your flaws and your blemishes on production.
Oh, 100%.
And on camera.
Yeah, 100%.
And it does get to you.
And what happens is sometimes on shoot, because pre-production you're never tired. Like, pre-production's you haven't gone through hell yet. You're just prepping. You're just organising hell. You know what I mean? You're at the supermarket buying your toilet paper. That's pre-production, right? But you get into the shoot, and that's the war.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you get into the war, and on days you're tired, someone's energy is going to bring you up. On days you can't be fucked, everyone's there. You got to do it. You know what I mean? So you go through that process, and you overcome those hurdles. When you get to post, everyone disappears. And that's the hardest bit. And this is why, like, I guarantee, if you're an actor out there or a crew member and you've worked on an independent feature film, I remember the shit I did when we were younger. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember working in shoots in 2010, 2011, 2012. Like, we were working on indie feature films back in our early days of our career as ADs and soundies and you know, whatever it was.
Too many.
And some of those films didn't see the light of day for 6 years, 7 years. And you know why as well? Because post-production comes, everyone disappears. Like, you know, and with us, it was one of those things where even though people aren't, you know, your crew is supposed to, I mean, your first AC is not going to sit there in the edit suite and start cutting this thing for you. But the energy that they bring goes away. You know what I mean? And then you start having, you know, people go back to their lives and people go back to doing what they're doing. And we're here going, okay, we've got to get this film over the line. So there's certain things we're trying to organise. You know, we're trying to organise.
And we've got to go back to our lives at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. You know, we've got to keep, I mean, you know, we run a production company. You know what I mean?
Bill's still got to be paid.
You know what I mean? Fucking tapes are coming in, show reels, you know, brand advertising gigs, things like that. So you go, okay, we've got to put work into, because we emptied the company doing the film, you got to then put your work and effort back into rebuilding that too. So you start going through the process, and we hit certain milestones flying, and then some milestones took a little longer to happen as well. And then things like, you know, you're trying to, you know, organise ADR sessions and actors are away, or, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
They're away here, so that delays you a month here, delays you a month there, and then you're going through the process of, you know, trying to sell the film, and then they need this, or they want this done differently. So you've gone and fixed something, and then you have to refix it, and then things like that, which you understand more than any of us, you know what I mean? Having to go
a lot
back
more
and,
now, yeah.
Yeah, having to go back and revisit certain things that was good, and then all of a sudden it's not good.
You
now,
need it to be good in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Different. You went A, then you have to go B. You know, so those are the main challenges there. So post production does take, and look, post production takes a fucking long time, especially for a feature film.
And once the edit's done, you know, you got to get into sound. You know, and well, let's face it, you're basically trying to filter out a whole bunch of noise in order for something to be aesthetic. I mean, have you ever listened to pure white noise, which is like frequencies all across the spectrum?
You know what? I was going to.
It sounds very similar to when waves crash along the beach, you know. So it's like you got the whole beach there, and all you want is the flow of the water. So you've got to go filter out all the sand there. You know, you don't want the sand. You know, you got to hate it and just get rid of it.
I'm not supposed to touch my face because, you know.
Yeah, you naughty man. Yeah, and you want to just clear the sand out because it just gets gets everywhere.
Hate sand.
It looks like we're taking a break there while I fix this camera. So we're back after that short break to get Damien's close-up camera. Once again, thanks to social distancing, we are using just mere cameras on tripods. How is that treating you at the moment, and 88-1 in general? I mean, we're pretty hopeful at the moment for some of the gigs we got coming up and the ways we can interact with people in isolation.
100%. Like, I mean, Well, like I said earlier, turn negatives into positives, you know what I mean? So right now, it's just all about giving back and going, look, for the people that are hit hardest, obviously freelancers and contractors and things like that. And look, we're not stopping. Like for us, I mean, before this whole thing hit, this, pandemic hit, like we're prepping our next feature film. That's not going to stop. Like we're still going to prep that. We're still going to get it ready and get it firing as well. So there'll be a lot of jobs obviously on offer when we do that beast. But yeah, I guess for artists, you know what I mean? Like, do think you can still, there's so much productivity you can do.
Yeah, just stay hungry.
Yeah, 100%. Stay hungry. But the industry's not going to die. You know what I mean? It'll come back at some point.
And they're going to need artists.
Yeah, and absolutely. It just goes to show what most people are doing now. You see all the memes, you know what I mean? People fucking going home watching Netflix. Guess who's on Netflix? Artists. So, for actors out there, guys, feel free to reach out, man. We're a sounding board for you guys. If you guys want tips, advice, anything, we're willing to give it back. Like to be honest with you, if I'm sitting here Monday to Friday, I'm bored. I'm happy to talk to people. I'm happy to guide them and walk them through certain things.
Well, let's move on to that. We've been through, the production and the post-production stages of TKG. We've talked about that. And now's the part, have you got any kind of mantle you can hand down to the next generation? What is your advice after all of TKG to our upcoming Australian filmmakers?
Yeah, I think understand that every situation is unique, okay? And I think that a lot of people follow blueprints, you know what I mean? I've got to get development funding for this. And the same thing we were talking about earlier with the short form projects. Feature film projects are the same. So there's a lot of directors out there and writers out there that are kind of writing content and then trying to get a $10,000 grant to, at the end of the day, it's like, look, your first feature is not going to be the be-all, end-all that you think it's going to be. I think that you just got to get it done. And I think that the filmmakers that can be the most resourceful, the ones who are going to make careers out of themselves. For me personally, I look at stuff I look at how I built my career, making independent short after independent short, self-finance short after self-finance short, and that got me to a point where I could self-finance a feature. I think that if you're one of those people that are going for grants all the time and trying to get funding, yeah, you'll get there. I'm not saying you won't, like 100% you will, and it'll take you the time that it needs to take you. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't make a feature film overnight. This is shit that I built, since my teens.
Your experience has been building, for 10 years.
Absolutely. So, but my biggest advice, or just if I'm chatting to filmmakers out there, it's just have the balls to go out there and create something, and don't be afraid to fuck it up. Like, one of the things going into TKG, I always felt like, when I first got into TKG, I went with that be-all, end-all kind of thing. You know what I mean? I had that mindset of going, oh, fuck, if this fucks up, then, is this the right move? You know what I mean? Is this the right move for me kind of thing? And you're like, you fuck it up, you pull your socks up, you go again. There's so many crew members out there and actors that are hungry. And don't underestimate that. Like, I remember coming up, we used to work TV broadcast, right?
Yes.
And you could work TV broadcast and you make some pretty good money. I used to do corporate directing, you know what I mean? And that'll get me, decent money. You know what I mean? You're on good hourly rates and good day rates and stuff, And then I used to pass on those gigs to do a first AD job where I make $100 a day. Because that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be on film sets. There is so many hungry crew out there that they're going to make a shit ton of money doing corporate production, doing TV broadcast, doing, reality, whatever it is, right? But the moment comes they get to jump on a film set and create content, they're 100% in. They're going to fuck it 100% they're in. So, don't underestimate that as a filmmaker. If you're a filmmaker that's sitting there, and especially, I want to talk to kind of like the early 20s, filmmakers in their early 20s. Like, I remember one of the things that I first came up with myself is, and this is the arrogance coming out of me a little bit, I will admit. I was like, I remember going to film school and they taught you that Hollywood's evil. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you remember, but if you remember film school the same way
I remember them saying, that,
Hollywood's evil and you should be doing this and you should be doing that. And I'm sitting there going, look, I'm not Michael Bay. And look, in all credit, respect to Michael Bay, he's got a career.
Yeah.
He's earning money doing what he's doing. He brings asses to seats and does his thing.
He is entertaining.
Yeah, we can knock him all we want. You know what I mean?
He's doing a job.
Parody him all we want, but he's doing what works for him. You know what I mean? So you look at certain things, and I felt at film school we were taught, especially in Australia, again, I don't know where people will be watching this from, but in Australia, you're pretty much taught Hollywood's evil and don't do that and do your own thing and be artsy. And I'm just sitting there going like, fuck, you got to learn to toe the line.
Number one rule of mass media, give the people what they want.
Yeah. Which goes back to what I was talking about.
Best James Bond lines right before he killed a villain.
True. I remember when I was talking earlier about the first feature, we're going to do that slasher.
Yeah.
And I got 60 pages in. I was like, I can't fucking do it. And because that's what happens. I think as a filmmaker, we all want integrity. We want integrity in our work. We want to make sure that what we're working on, we want our identity in. We want our style to be in that thing. But you got to learn to walk that line between how can I create three-dimensional content or, deep content, but also have audience appeal. And the problem is, and advice to filmmakers, if you're a 20, 21, 22-year-old filmmaker, if you're a 30, 40-year-old filmmaker, stop making films for yourself. Stop making films for other filmmakers. And I see that in Australia so fucking much.
Oh, yeah.
Where, and again, I'm going to be very straightforward and blunt here.
Obviously, make for a large enough demographic to be a cinema ticket purchasing population.
In Australia that go make something, and other filmmakers are fucking... I'm trying to be appropriate, but they're loving it. They go, oh my god, this is amazing.
Our industry is very self-congratulatory of itself.
And I used to go, like, no, like, I want to make good films. Don't get me wrong, but what's the point of making it for 10 people?
Mm-hmm.
I want to make it for the masses. I want to make my film where it will get a large audience and a larger following. That being said, this is what I'm saying. You've got to toe the line between being an artist and having a career. And I think that if you can make your film, and that's one of the things that TKG was my guinea pig for. It's like, how can we make a film that, again, you can cut a trailer out of? That was the first thing we spoke about, was the trailer. Yeah. It's like, how can we make a film we can cut a trailer out of, right? But then at the same time, watch the film, because you watch the film, if you're just a popcorn, like, one of the things that used to come up, man, I don't want to knock I love my brother, right? But I always said, early in my career, I always said to if I can make a film my brother would want to watch, excellent. Because he knows what he likes, and he likes to be entertained. He likes to be, you know what I mean? This makes sense to me. It's entertaining to me. You know what I mean? Would he watch American Beauty? Fuck no. You know what I'm saying? Like, so he would sit there and say, okay, well, this is entertaining. This is good, right? So I say, well, would he watch this film and enjoy it? And if that's a yes, great. But also, I want to make sure that I'm going to get respect from my peers. I want to make sure that I can watch this and find the deeper meaning in it. So when we got into...
You can have depth and integrity.
Which goes in the process of what we were talking about earlier, is when you put the film together, and it's like you just put your foundation base, a thriller set in an office building. Now let's actually put the depth inside the characters.
And you were saying that, so much aside from the foundation changed, but it stayed solid.
Yeah.
You had the good idea there.
Yeah, 100%. And then you go through that and you go, okay, well, let's find the depth now. Like, I want to make films that you watch one time, be like, oh yeah, cool. And then you watch it the second time, be like, fuck. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't pick up on that. And
then there's quite a few spots in there where you can tell, we put in quite a bit of effort into this and the way things were placed.
Yeah, 100%. So I think for filmmakers, it's if you're a young filmmaker in Australia, 20 years old, and you're at film school, wherever that is, but if you're doing film school and you're being like, everyone's like, oh, you got to do artsy this, artsy that, don't stick to your guns. If you want to make art house films, go for gold, 100%. If that's where your passion lies, 100%, but do it for you. Don't do it because, we think this is what we're supposed to do. I mean, look, I've come across quite a few filmmakers, right, over the last 10, 12 years. And I'm like, they're talented, but their films are... I mean, they're great, because I can appreciate it as a filmmaker. But I'm like, holy shit, if I show that to our next door neighbor, they're going to be like, what the fuck's this? You know what I mean? So, and again, everyone's into different things. I'm not saying there's no market for an art house. Of course there's a market for art house, but not to build a career out of it.
Let's face it, you need to feel a cinema at some point if you want to make this into a career.
And I think that, what we did and what I wanted to preach to the crew that we had working for us is go, guys, you can do this shit too. I mean, if three blokes from Perth, WA, again, not a knock on Perth, but if we come from Perth where you think Australian industry's small, that shit's minimal.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So if we can come over from Perth and be ambitious to do this, I mean, we're not going to be the pioneers of the industry. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be...
We did bring a lot of the tricks you learn in Perth.
Yeah,
like, we're very good at operating in a crew that most other places would consider guerrilla.
Yeah,
it's still fully fleshed to us.
Yeah, 100%. And you look at that going like, if we can come across the Nullarbor and do things over here, mate, anyone can do shit. You know what I mean? I think that all it takes is you to have the balls to put your screenplay out there and say, let's go. Mate, we came up right between the transition between... We shot the last year of film school at TAFE WA, right? We shot 16mm film.
Yes.
First year outside of film school.
Digital.
We're working on shoots with the red one.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that we came right in that transition period. So we couldn't come out... Like, when we came out, things like DSLRs weren't huge. You know what I mean? Like, they were starting to come out, but they weren't there yet. So we couldn't
remember the first generation was the 5D Mark II that didn't even do 25 frames for Australia.
100%. So we didn't have the position to go grab a DSLR and shoot a short film with. So we came out and it's like, we're not going to shoot 16mm film because it's going to cost us in film stock alone.
Oh, yeah.
So we got to find a way to get our hands on a red one. I think one of the first cameras we used professionally was an SI2K.
Yes.
Which I don't think they exist anymore. So they might do. I might be speaking out of line here. But then we went there, and from there we graduated to the red. But, you know, you look at that going, well, you don't necessarily need a red to go make a short film. Everyone's going to use them now to make a short film. You don't need them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Use a fucking DSLR with a good lens kit. Fuck. That'll do the job for you. So
We did.
Yeah. So you got this position now where you're like, it's so easy if you're 20, 21, 22 to go out there and pump out 6 or 7 short films in the space of 4 years, 3 years. Like, to do 16 in 6 years like we did, like, that's so achievable.
Yeah.
Don't sit there and again, like, I see these people going...
And these days, you have a fantastic camera in your pocket. I'm not wrong.
Oh, fair enough. Well, yeah. But, you know, so I look at things going, this is so achievable for people to do that. And if you do that, and one thing is I say this, is you've got the ability to make a micro-budget feature film if you grew up making no-budget short films.
Yes.
If you're a filmmaker, and I know a lot of these guys, and I'm not knocking them, but they grew up being fed budgets. You know what I mean? Here's 30 grand to go make a short. Here's 10 grand to make a short. Or four grand to make a 1 minute fucking short, right? So they're used to having money to spend. When you come up, and the biggest advantage about doing your own thing, which is when you said, like, would I do it all over again?
Yeah,
Fuck no, I'll do exactly the same thing if I had my time over again. Exact same thing, because it
poor
taught
man.
me to be resourceful. You got to be resourceful, which means that we've got to find ways to make something look good without spending $1 million. So you got to go, okay, well, we can do that with angles. We can do that with performance. We can do that with lighting and colors and shit like that, right? You know, we can play with color palettes a lot more. We can play with this a lot more, because we've got to find a way to stretch that dollar, right?
Yeah.
So when you do no budget shorts that you're doing on your own with your mate, again, do them with your mates. That's what we did. You know what I mean? We're like family now.
And now I'm stuck with him.
Yeah, in quarantine. But, you know, that's the biggest advantage about film school. It's not necessarily what you learn. And look, we came up with some great mentors. You know what I mean? 1 or 2 at least.
Oh, yeah.
Back in Central TAFE WA, you know what I mean? There's a couple of those guys taught us some great shit. And most of it was on the job. You know what I mean? Like, when you're kind of doing your film shoots and shit like that, you get taught on the job a little bit.
They'd come in, they'd supervise you, they'd give you advice.
Yeah, I mean, then on the flip side, there was also a few that you're like, oh, you know, whatever. But at the same time, is the biggest advantage of film school is you find those fucking hungry crew members. I mean, you look at this. When we came out of film school, we had a crew of what? Like 10, 11, 12 of us. You know what I mean? If you think about it. Now, not all of those guys, they'll run with you for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. But eventually you find out who fits and who doesn't fit. You find out who's in it for the long run and who's just in it for a quick, you know, quick dollar. So
I reckon maybe 5, 6 of us from our TAFE year are still actively in the industry.
From what I know, to be honest, outside of the 3 of us, I really don't know, and I'm not saying that they're not all that they are. Just, you know, you just don't. There's a couple of them actually I know that have started their own shit, like doing like, there's actually 1 or 2 that I know are doing really well for themselves. We're working with Channel 10, or then going from Channel 10 and creating. I think one of our mates is, or one of our boys back in the day, he's got his own kind of production, video production house now, which looks like
he's
it's doing
great.
Well.
Yep.
Yeah, so shout out to
That
Mark.
could be you.
Yeah. So shout out to Mark. But you see that, and I remember like even coming up, and there's still crew that we came out with that we're not necessarily working with now, but in a heartbeat I'll go with again. I mean, I'll shout out Elena. She's one of the best art department people I've ever worked with.
Yes.
You know what I mean? 100%. Like, you know, she's based in Perth, Western Australia. So if I gave her a call and she'll be straight back into this crew, because I think she's fucking fantastic. So you do meet some really good people in film school. I think what happens is if you're currently in film school now, you've just finished, like, that's your crew. And you can build that crew just like me, you and Georgie did. Like, we built this crew in 2008. You know what I mean? Here we are in 2020, 12 years on, and we're running this stuff together. So that's the big advantage of film school. And I think that if you find crew that are hungry, then that crew will expand over time. And you just do it. And look, over time, you're not gonna get your same crew of 20 people and work with them for 20 years. That's not going to happen. But
you wouldn't really want to either.
Yeah, exactly. But if you can find the heart and soul of what you want to do, if you're an aspiring director, find a DP or an aspiring DP. I will say, like, not everyone's a DP just because they operate a camera, but find somebody who's aspiring to be a DP. Yeah, aspiring to be a DP. Watch them improve over time. Watch them continue shit, because the more shit you do, the more they can improve. This is the thing that fucking drives me. One thing I say, like, and you asked before, like, what do I feel I bring to 88-1 Productions? Well, that's the thing I wanted to bring. Like, if I'm creating the content, or at least giving the avenue to content, hopefully it'll make George a better camera up with experience.
Hopefully.
So he shoots more and more and more and more. You get to operate more gigs more and more, do more editing more and more. So it's allowing the platform for us to build our careers, because we're doing more content. So if you're sitting there and you're going, it's too hard to make a short, I don't know anyone. Fuck off. Like, people will do. We had a hungry ass crew work for 22 days for 14 hours a day, knowing they weren't getting paid too much. You know what I mean? And they're there every day because they're hungry. You know what I mean? So that's my biggest thing. It's like, you can do whatever it takes. And I swear to God, and one of the things I will say, and forgive me for saying it, but for directors out there and filmmakers out there, just check yourself for a sec, because you don't know what it's like to be a proper director until you've done a feature. Whether that's a micro budget or a budgeted feature, you just don't. Like, I used to call myself a director before I did TKG, and I remember halfway through TKG, I was like, oh, you fuckstick. Like, I was like, dude, like, you wear the mantle now, you deserve it now.
We finish it and I still think you're a fuckstick.
Yeah, I'm 100%. But I think have the balls to do it. If you got the balls to go out there with your script, get a crew together, if you fuck it up, you fuck it up.
Yeah.
You know, and the only reason we didn't is because we were blessed with a great crew. You know what I mean? But you don't know whether you are or you're not until you go out there and do it. So, yeah, that's my biggest takeaway and advice or shit I want to give to these people, because there's so many people that frustrate me because I seen, and I know them, they're on my social media, so I don't give a fuck. Like, they're on my social media, and it's like, sit and wait.
That's a fantastic segue then for giving back to social media. Now,
yeah.
Right now, obviously, almost every gig in the entire country is dried up for media, but you guys need to stay hungry. You need to keep practicing. And what are we here at 88 to 1 doing to help them?
So first of all, we just started a new initiative for actors. So what we're going to do is we're putting it out there to performers to stay accountable. So one thing that we want from them is to go out there, find a monologue, find a script, do a self-tape, keep it within 60 to 90 seconds, put that down as a performance and send it through to us. What we're going to do is we're going to take those performances and we're going to do like a little video for each one, giving them some feedback, some direction, things for them to work on.
Similar to what we're doing now, where we'll sit down here, we'll have a look at what you're doing, and then we'll give you some feedback on it.
The main reason as well for that, it's not just for them to go out and put it on tape, but accountability is a big thing. And sometimes actors and us as filmmakers and whatever, we're goal driven. We need goals. So it's so hard to say to someone, oh, you might be in isolation for 8 weeks. Just work on a script. Like, they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
If you set yourself deadlines, so what we're planning to do is each Friday, for instance, like we'll say on each Friday, we're going to get the tapes that we've been sent in and we're going to do that. So it gives you goals. It gives you something to go, well, I've got to get my tape in by this time, by this date, because then it just sets goals for you. And the second you have goals and you start actually seeing the results from those goals come across, that's when you're going to keep moving and keep, preaching forward. And that being said, like, I want to start a new initiative soon to give back to aspiring filmmakers. You know what I mean? So once our film's out, and you know what I mean, you can watch it for yourself and judge whether you think we know what we're doing or not. Then feel free to reach out. If you're an aspiring filmmaker and you've listened to this whole, 14-hour fucking little podcast that we're doing, and you want to ask more questions, send them through. Seriously, we'll put a website down here, email address down here. Feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. Oh, in that case, the email will be quarantine@88to1.productions or quarantine@88to1productions.com.au. Either one of those will work. And yeah, thank you very much for joining me for this first episode, I guess, of 88 to 1 in quarantine.
Love it, Pete. Love it.
And stay safe, everyone. We will all get through this together, particularly our friends in the film, TV, and media industries. And thanks very much, Damien.
Peace out.